Hello, guys. It's time for some more BSL. Of course, joining me is the big Jip. Today, we're going to have another round of eight, two round of eight series. It's going to be Dandy versus TerrOr, an exciting Peruvian matchup. And then we've got ZVZ, True Touch, and Eonzerg facing off versus each other.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about this matchup yesterday when I was talking about it, or both of these matchups. Of course, we got mirrors galore in the round of 8. Yesterday, we saw Oya versus Bonnet in a pretty exciting series, honestly. There were some games that were just kind of out of this world in terms of, like, I don't know, like, I just felt pretty excited watching them. So hopefully today, their matchups will be just as good. You know, TVT sometimes can be a bit long, but a lot of the times it's very interesting. And actually, I remember, you know, Dandy versus TerrOr, they played last season, and that was one of the most epic series ever. It went to game 5, and it was on that Gold Rush game that was like an hour long.
Yeah, that game was insane. Like, somebody had +1 for like forever. I can't remember who it was, but it was so back and forth. A Gold Rush, not in the map pool this time, but we do have other exciting maps like Blue Storm. I don't think Blue Storm's going to give us a game like that, but potentially Tau Cross could. We know that's also in the map pool. But yeah, this should be exciting. Yesterday, Oya G versus Bonnet, there were a couple games where you thought, okay, Oya can do it.
Yeah.
But Bonnet, specifically the Power Bond game, Oya G's up 30 supply, and then they have a fight, and Bonnet is up. Well, actually, he's even in supply, but Oya G has a natural with extra probes. I'm like, how does he do it? How does he always have the most favorable fight? But he just does Bonnet things, and he makes it in the round of 4. And now we're going to have TerrOr versus Dandy and Eonzerg versus True Touch. You know, I'm most excited to see Eonzerg versus True Touch because I want to see that killer ZVZ micro, man.
Yeah, they're both so nuts at that matchup too. It's probably their best matchups, but I know Eonzerg good. I mean, I'm always excited to watch Eonzerg play in general, but ZVZ is really kind of his specialty. Accentuates his aggression, his micro prowess, just kind of his matchup. And we'll see if True Touch, of course, True Touch, you know, we always talk about the ZVZ Kings in BSL, I feel like, and it's Eonzerg, True Touch, and Siki, and every time they just have such killer Mutalisk micro. And, you know, True Touch, I think earlier this season played versus Michael in an epic ZVZ series where he kind of just brought it back. And I don't know, maybe it was the season before that as well.
I remember that game.
Yeah.
Didn't Michael just run over Spores and kill all of his Mutalisks?
But they played twice that day, I'm pretty sure. They played twice, so... And both games are just... Somehow True Touch just managed to bring it back, so obviously the guy is incredible at the matchup. And, you know... Basically, we just have... Honestly, these two series are going to be amazing. I know a lot of... You know, some people might not be too into mirror matchups, but... I feel like when you have players, like these players specifically playing each other, you can't really go wrong. Of course, yesterday we had the first batch of quarterfinalists play, Siki and Bonnet coming out on top, so they're locked in for next week. And today, we're going to find out what the second semifinals is going to look like. First match is going to be TerrOr versus Dandy, though.
Yeah, so this is going to be a TVT. Dandy did not race pick Protoss, I'm assuming. He didn't do it last season either, so I imagine that he's just going to continue with Terran here. Yeah, this should be a really good matchup. I'm looking for Bob Malcolm in the chat. Where are you at, man? I know you're here supporting one of these players.
Yeah.
You know, I was looking at on Facebook. Bombastic Starleague has a Facebook, and there's a hilarious picture between there's like Peru deciding who's gonna win TerrOr or Dandy, and then there's a guy sweating. That picture was hilarious. I saw that on my feed earlier today.
Like with the red button.
Yeah, it's a great photo.
It is good.
You know, last season TerrOr got the best of Dandy, so even though I'm a TerrOr fan, well, I'm a fan of both. I'm kind of hoping to see some redemption from Dandy here, but TerrOr is a force to be reckoned with, and I like that you mentioned that, you know, mirror matchups can be fun, and when you have players like this, somebody like TerrOr, who even as a spectator, you're like, okay, what the hell is this guy doing? It makes the matchup more interesting than a lot of other TVTs.
Well, especially between these two players here, because they have so much history. You know, they're always playing together in terms of tournaments. both being from the same region, both being kind of the two top Terran players here outside of Korea. Not too many Terran players, that is. Yeah.
Something I'm noticing for the first time, BSL ELO, was that added to the graphic?
No, it's always been there, dude.
It's been there?
Yes.
Am I blind?
Yes.
Well, I would like to see the BSL ELO, who's in second place. We all know where Bonnet is. He's at the top. But who's in second, who's in third overall? I'd be interested to see that. Can I find that on the Starleague?
It's Zero sent it to us on Discord, but it's on the BSL website now. I can't believe you haven't checked this. Eonzerg is number 2.
I remember looking at this.
Not even surprising, actually.
But I don't remember seeing it on the graphic.
You know who's in the top 10? Jaeyoon and TT1. But we haven't seen those guys in a while.
How did TT1 get up there?
Yeah, how did he get up there? But yeah, and that's the thing, man. These two players, they have, like, last season when they played, there's so many mind games going on. I remember TerrOr, they played on Overwatch, and TerrOr opened with the proxy racks and the proxy factory, and Dandy was doing his gasless kind of typical opener, and he got completely smacked. And that's the kind of opening that you can do versus someone that you have such a long history with.
Yeah, we know that TerrOr likes to pull out a bunch of builds. We know what the vetoes are. It's Blindside and Power Bond, and TerrOr ended up vetoing Blindside, which means he got first pick. He ended up picking Shakuras, but if I was him in this scenario, and I already know what the maps are going to be, I would pick Bluestorm first. And the reason for that is because we know this is a weird map. And if I win here with something like an 8-Rax or Proxy Factory and float it in their main, Dandy's already tilted out of his mind. So I'm a bit sad that he didn't pick Shakuras first, but that's going to be his first map pick for this round of 8.
Yeah, it will be on Shakuras this first game. And Shakuras is a very standard map. Time and again, honestly, when it comes down to it, very rarely do the players not pick one of these 3 ladder maps, Eclipse, Shakuras, or Polypoid. And, understandably so, because it's just so much easier to practice on these maps. And, a lot of viewers might think, well, why not pick those more obscure maps? Because you can maybe undermine your opponent's preparation. And, in general, that's a good idea. But in general, I would say if you feel like you're confident in winning, if you feel like you're confident in your own skill level, you just play the things you're most comfortable on, because that's, once you have more preparation on a specific map, it drastically reduces the variance of losing to random stuff. And yeah, and most players in the BSL, man, let me tell you, they're confident.
Yeah, and another thing about that is, even if you have practiced to play something like Bluestorm or Blindside, the people that are willing to play you are going to be in the BSL, right? Like, they're going to be there. So basically you're practicing with your opponents, and that's not always the wisest move. So it's not a surprise to me that we, of course, see the ladder maps being picked every time. For now, we are just waiting for the players to get into the game. We can see that both players have similar win rates. I mean, it's almost identical, actually. 65 versus Zerg. Same for Dandy. A little bit higher versus Terran. But, Terra's been a little more hot lately compared to Dandy. But last season, Dandy played a bit better than he did, like, in recent past. Like, it seems like he's more in shape these days. So I think this time around, Dandy maybe not a favorite, but this matchup should be more close than it was last season.
Well, it was really close last season.
Well, yeah, I mean, but before we got into those games, I think it could be, instead of Dandy falling this time, it could go in his favor. But, if anybody's a favorite, I think it's like 51, 49%, something like that.
Yeah. I have no idea what to expect in this matchup, to be completely honest with you. Doesn't really matter because the game is ready. Let's just get straight into this series. Dandy versus TerrOr, game 1 on Shakuras.
So in the bottom left, almost impossible to read this name. I'm gonna go with TerrOr in the bottom left, and in the top right. Oh no! It has to be Dandy. You know how I know it's Dandy? Because magenta color for TerrOr. That's his color, man. So we got TerrOr in the top right, Dandy in the bottom left.
You didn't even know that, man.
I can't read it.
It took you a while. You can't just backtrack on that.
I forgot that magenta is TerrOr's color.
Yeah, it sure is. And Peter Castle.
I'll have to look up who that is because
you think that's
no
Castle,
idea.
the NA Protoss?
It could be. If we see this SCV go down, build a forward pylon, and then follow it up with a forge, it might be Castle.
Peter Castle, British footballer? That can't be it, dude.
I don't know. Isn't soccer pretty popular? Well, it's
no, this guy's like
popular
34 years old, dude. Like, he's a boomer. He's like a fossil player. He's like older than you.
Well, for those of you
I've never heard of Peter Castle.
Well, yeah, those of you that didn't know, my birthday was a couple days ago. I turned 23. So, not as old as Peter Castle yet, but we're getting up there.
It was someone a couple days ago? Recently, wait, really?
Yeah, someone I know recently had a birthday, right? And they're pushing, what, 1 year away from 30? Is that you? 1 year, 2 years away from 30?
What are you talking about now? No,
You're
I'm 2 years, dude. I'm getting up there.
2 years.
To the end. Getting close to the end of my life.
Yeah. All right, well.
I'm just kidding. Zero's in the call. I can't just say these things. But gas going up here for Peter Castle.
Yeah, basically mirrored builds, except the gas timing for TerrOr is a little bit slower. Man, the blue is really throwing me off since it's not magenta. And we do see that both players are going to second scout each other. You know what's funny about TVT between these guys is we're seeing 12 gas, but almost never see 12 gas opener whenever they play TVP. Now, this is interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen get the gas and then evaluate whether I can expand or not. And that's what we're seeing from TerrOr. He's going to go for that command center. Once he sees that, he's going to be able to get away with it.
Yeah, well, he is kind of... Well, I mean, looking at this build here, it's just to get the fastest factory after command center, right? Like,
yeah,
it makes sense. Whatever.
Actually, if you guys do this build, the factory is something like 10 seconds faster compared to a gasless expand. I was experimenting with this when Light was innovating it in TVP. It's an interesting opener. Of course, your command center is not as fast, so you sack like, you know, maybe like 1.5 SCVs. It's pretty marginal, but it does allow you to get up a pretty quick first factory. So if you have trouble dealing with like a 2-fact pressure build going gasless, you should consider going for something like this.
Yeah, but you can see Dandy is just expanding, and you know, the bottom line too, I actually like this build from TerrOr because a lot of non-Korean Terrans, I feel like they have a tendency to just all in when they see you go for something like a Rax expand. And so this faster factory does help you in defending versus something like a siege tank push. But the reality is, like, you don't have to necessarily all in. You can just expand, and you know, Dandy's probably going to be behind on one SCV, but is going to be ahead on a Vulture. So it's not like the game's really over. Like, it's not a really massive economic advantage here. You come out ahead with 1 or 2 SCVs maybe, but that's totally playable. And Dandy's going to have some map control for a bit. But yeah, you know, so far obviously this opener is nice for TerrOr.
SCV died, but it spotted the Vulture, and I'm kind of interested on what this Vulture is intending to do. I don't think Dandy is someone where he's like, oh, I see a bunker, I'm running by it. I don't think that goes through his mind. So I think this is just going to be a mine expand, which is an interesting opener, because really, I don't think you see that often versus somewhat sort of a gasless expand coming in from TerrOr. Now, meanwhile, TerrOr goes for a full wall. That's an Academy depot behind the bunker. He must suspect that Dandy is going to try and go for a run by. And behind this, he's got 2 factory tank production.
Yeah, well, he did scout Dandy's expansion, so he knows that it's not all in. Walling your natural here is pretty standard in this matchup, especially when you go for the build that TerrOr has gone for, because there is a small timing window before you get any factory units out that Dandy could have went for Vulture speed and just ran in 2 to 3 Vultures to snipe SCVs to even up the economic disadvantage. But, you know, the reality is, even though Dandy didn't go for that, he's fine. He's ahead in supply. And I don't think actually that TerrOr is really significantly ahead in SCV count anyway. 2 factory add-ons, though. What do you think about this, Nyokin? It's not very common generally to see this type of opening.
Yeah, so he's going to build up his tank count really high. And then he's going to move out with probably like 5 tanks and like 4 vultures, I would imagine. Now that type of army can just bulldoze through any amount of mines, even if they don't have scan. So this could be a dangerous attack that TerrOr goes for. He ends up using a scan to see what Dandy is going for. I find that a bit surprising because, as I pointed out, he saw the vulture. He knew that this is a vulture opener, and because the vultures have not shown themselves, really all they could be doing is going for mines all over the place. So that means that he's going to not have a scan available.
It's kind of weird, actually, come to think of it, because I don't remember the last time, you know, you don't really scan in this matchup for information like that on your opponent's build order. I feel like scanning really is more of, you get the academy because you need to clear out mines eventually, because you need to scout cloaked wraiths.
Oh.
But I think it's maybe indicative of the very turtley nature of, or the slow-paced nature of this build, 2-fact add-on from TerrOr.
Well, you know, TVT is a very passive matchup, and, well, sometimes it can be passive. And maybe TerrOr has a read on Dandy where he likes to get a little bit too greedy. And as I say that, you know, mid-left, that's a command center over there. I don't think that's a floated Rax. And that scan might have been intended to be like, I want to get a glimpse at your factory count, because if I think there's any type of greed going on, I'm just going to instantly punish it. As soon as the scan went down, 2 more factories went down for TerrOr. Now, based on what I saw, I don't think Dandy gave away anything. I don't really think this was anything that indicative like, oh, he's hiding in command center anywhere. Of course, we see that's going on, but I don't think TerrOr saw it and that went through his mind. Meanwhile, Dandy ended up saving that barracks, and that does matter. It not only gives him vision, but allows him to put down those 5 factories. He's going to be going up into potentially another one.
Yeah, TerrOr looks like his plan is starting to take form here, in that he was building up that tank count and now just going straight into 5 factories to supplement it with a bunch of vultures so that he can go for a bust here. And it's going to be very difficult for Danny to hold on, because he did go for that 3rd command center really early, but he is sieged. He has no idea, though, where TerrOr is, and TerrOr's kind of just making his way here, and this is going to be a good angle for TerrOr, because most of Dandy's tanks are not actually firing. TerrOr's not even sieging, he's just moving through, which isn't really the best idea. I mean, these tanks in the back are also shooting down the tanks, but finally TerrOr has a couple of vultures rallying in. Dandy sieges more tanks on the low ground, but they do miss up on that high ground there. TerrOr somehow busts through.
I kind of can't believe what I just watched. I thought for sure as this is unfolding, okay, you're moving your army into 5 tanks with support. There's no way you're going to be able to get through it. However, not only does he get through it, he has 3 or 4 tanks left over, and he knows that this was a 3rd command center. He forces a transfer to the natural, and he goes for a starport follow-up. Now look at what Dandy has. He has 7 factories already. He has no anti-air. He does have the armory, but no Goliaths out just yet. So even 1 Wraith could be super annoying. I'm not sure if that armory was spinning or not.
No,
but
neither armory is spinning, so you can definitely tell both players are very aggressive in this matchup, not really thinking about going into that mid to late game. You know, delaying your upgrades is such a huge deal in TVT, because if the other player ever gets the +2 and you're stuck on +1 for a prolonged period, you just instantly lose the game. So very aggressive from both players, to be honest. And I was going to mention Dandy actually took this mid-left base or whatever, the 3rd, as his third. It just wasn't really the best third to take. I feel like if he just took the 6 o'clock base, it would be easier for him to just line up his tanks in a line and cover both his natural and his third. So maybe a bit of missed opportunity there, but actually Dandy with this 7 or 6 factory production is going to make a bunch of vultures. Somehow those mines didn't connect, and that was a huge win for TerrOr. He basically got gifted all those vultures. The tanks are still alive and they're in the back, so not really accessible to being finished off. And behind this, TerrOr somehow made this happen with just 4 factories. He has a starport and an add-on like you mentioned, and also a 3rd command center coming. So TerrOr's looking like he's in a really good spot.
Yeah, still can't. Yeah, oh, the armory is spinning now, so +1 is coming on the way. What's funny about this timing from TerrOr is if it didn't hit exactly when it was, Dandy would have had a huge flood of units. You can see Dandy's actually the one that's up in supply despite losing the first fight. He's up 10 supply. That's a decent amount of supply at this stage in the game. We do see tanks and vultures moving around the side. I don't know if we've seen a scan from Dandy just yet, but he doesn't clear out those mines. Meanwhile, TerrOr spotted it, so he's going to move his tanks and vultures into position. He has so many tanks and vultures on the backside. Also, he's going to engage these vultures directly and clear out these mines too. And all of these vultures have done is really just laid a handful of mines and not done anything else.
Yeah, but they're buying a lot of time, and especially in a situation like this, you know, vultures are just so important in TVT. Like, in the early mid game, it's hard to have tanks covering every single angle on a specific map. So when vultures get out and lay mines, it can be extremely annoying, and it's one of the best ways of exerting map control in this matchup. And Dandy kind of is going to have that opportunity because he increased his factory count so fast. But TerrOr is dealing with these relatively okay. As long as the vultures from Dandy don't get into one of his bases, he will pick off these 2 tanks. How many vultures do go down? None at all. So that was actually really good from Dandy.
Well, even though Dandy gets his 3rd base up at the same time as TerrOr, and we were kind of, or you were kind of pointing out, well, maybe he should have taken this bottom base to begin with. I do have to point out, Shakuris is one of those maps where if TerrOr gets to the left side where the first base was taken, he can just shoot the factories from over the ledge. He can also start elevatoring into the main. So it's kind of a difficult position to be in as Dandy.
That's fair enough, but I mean, if TerrOr commits to that side of the map, his whole side would be open to a lot of stuff. So there's definitely counterplay there. Looks like Dandy is finding some ways into this base, but not quite connecting with the worker count. So these vultures, I mean, bleeding vultures eventually is pretty bad because, you know, this trade here is very good, but Dandy has to be a bit mindful of how many vultures he has. And the problem with Dandy's position here is that he never really pushed his tanks from the 3rd base up onto the high ground. He's defending his 3rd base from the low ground. He doesn't really have any position out on the map, and TerrOr has such a forward position that if ever this game goes a bit longer, he's going to be in a really good spot.
Well, this is game changing because Dandy did not scan for the race at all, and these 3 race, I think, might kill every single tank there. And you know TerrOr, as soon as, oh, he does know about the race. He does have 2 Goliaths out, and they end up taking down one of the race. Now, +1 is kicked in for both players. Don't know if either player has Science Facility up just yet, but if they do, yeah, TerrOr does, so +2 is going to be started and kicking in, you know, I don't know, probably a minute or so from now. Meanwhile, Dandy has not started +2, so that is a critical miss right there. And as you pointed out, Dandy really needs to move these tanks into a better position. I mean, you can play defensive in TVT, but if you have no map control, you're just going to slowly bleed out. Now we see TerrOr moving in with a massive attack, and this is right before Dandy moved all of his tanks into position.
Yeah, and he's just punishing Dandy for not having any position out on the map. Now Dandy's going to be able to defend this base because look at how many tanks he has. He can definitely get into a nice position. Though all the Goliaths do go down, these 2 Wraiths will start working on this tank line. And given the... Look, these Goliaths aren't going to be able to range these Wraiths unless they have a range right now. But they have to get awfully close to the siege tank range of TerrOr's tanks.
Well, all TerrOr has to do is kill that bottom tank, and then I think he can get around the tanks on the left side and siege the 3rd base. And once that single tank at the bottom goes down, this base might be compromised. Yeah, Terra realizes he instantly unsieged, but he's not moving it to the side. He bleeds off 1 or 2 tanks, but now they're in position to siege this command center.
Yeah, this expansion's donezo for Dandy, and behind this Terror had a 4th command center going. Does not quite land it just yet. Of course, Dandy has a couple of units out on the map, and Dandy realizes the cause is lost at the 6 o'clock. He will try and migrate towards that mid left. All those SCVs go down though, but I mean, with Terror committing to attacking the 6 o'clock, he doesn't have units out to defend his side of the map. But where can Dandy go? He can go to try and deny this 12 o'clock, but I mean, Terror will still be on 3 base.
Yeah, he's still going to have 3 bases. As you mentioned, Terror was completely on the right side of the map, so all of his units are out of position, and now Dandy's going to be the one setting up a contain. What I'm worried about now for Dandy is he has all these units out, but if Terror recontains him, how does he ever reinforce this army? Damn, that is a lot of units for Dandy. However, supplies are still in favor of Terror. He's up 20. He also has a vessel, and D-Matrix is a game changer in TVT. So if he goes for it right here and he has a D-Matrix, I think he's just going to plow through. Sure, he's going to take some heavy losses, but if he has +2 kicking in anytime soon, he's going to trade way more effectively, obviously. Here he goes. I think he's going to try and go for it. Need that D-Matrix, though.
Yeah, I mean, he has energy for a D-Matrix, but at the same time, Dandy just had no tanks there. He had 5 tanks total.
Oh my gosh.
Dandy got completely crushed here. Terror's... That's it. He just is going to run away with this game. No 3rd base. Well, Dandy still has a couple of units left to fight. Looks like Terror just doesn't give, you know, just running in there.
Yeah, again, I was like, is he not going to siege for this fight? And the answer is, well, he's going to siege half of them, but the other half of the tanks are, you know, very exposed. Terror's going to lose a lot of army, however.
Style engage right there. Just half tank siege, half tanks unsiege, A moving, and it doesn't matter, man.
I know, supplies are now almost double. It's what, 99 to 155, and this, I mean, that's after a huge macro cycle from Dandy. So this is gonna, okay, if we don't siege here, we might lose our whole army. Okay, and we're gonna lose our whole army.
Yeah,
that was an overstep. That was a mistake.
That was definitely a small throw there, but Terror is just so significantly ahead. You can see +1 is so late for Dandy. I mean, the standard +1 timing in this matchup is around like 14:30, so we're 17:30, 3 minutes late. Definitely hurting him, and possibly the reason why he even lost those fights, to be honest with you, because, well, +2 finishes now, but Terror had +2 in those fights, and I think that's why he actually was able to win despite having half his tanks just A move, unsiege, like into siege tanks. So really the upgrades are important, but you know, well, when all is said and done, Terror has a 4th base here, 5th base top left as well. Not mining just yet, but Terror is in a killer position.
Yeah, and having that 4th base means that all his SCVs that are going to mine out the main and mineral or natural can be transferred to the 4th and 5th base, and you know, start mining more effectively again. Meanwhile, Dandy, because he only has his 3rd base, where do all these SCVs go? Well, the answer is he's going to try and retake bottom middle. But no Goliath support. That means these Wraiths are going to deal a lot of damage, and we see instantly Terror jumps on it. That vessel should have enough energy for another D-Matrix. That's a big hit from the tanks, though. They do have +2 now, so Terror can't just willy-nilly A-move across the map anymore. You can see that the supplies are catching up. It's 120 to 140. That's even a 6th command center for Terror floated on the right side.
Yeah, but Dandy is just in such a difficult situation. He doesn't have any units on the high ground. He doesn't have any position on the high ground. So finally, actually, Terror does not have units defending this ramp. Looks like Dandy will get a couple of nice shots onto those 2 tanks on the high ground, though. Good trading for Terror. Mines will connect. Don't quite kill the tanks, though. And now Terror desperately needs to get some units on the high ground. Like, you need position on the map here. It looks like somehow, I mean, the supplies are even-ish. Dandy, though, with saturating this 5th base, like, even if Dandy is contesting the game right now, I feel like Terror is going to start running away with this one.
Well, if Dandy does manage to make a comeback, Terra can chalk it up to simply just that A move at the third base we saw a couple moments ago, because really Dandy was about to be on one base, and really Terra didn't have to do anything. He just needed to shadow any potential, drop or wraith play from Dandy to try and make something happen, and we know that that wasn't going to happen anytime soon. Actually, Terra's the one going for drops. He's the one, again, continuing to be aggressive. He wants to end this game. They get intercepted by a handful of vultures, and the vultures see that top middle has already been secured. But I don't really know what Dandy can do to stop it. He doesn't really have any defense at his third base. Sure, there's tanks, a little bit far forward, but just a straight up drop on top of it could be game changing. He can even just drop it on the factories in the main, which is what I think he's going to do.
Yeah, especially on this map, there's like some high ground beneath or behind this mineral line that you can just fly over. Undefended production, no units in sight. Dandy has to pray that a couple of tanks are about to pop out of his factories, or else he has no answer to this drop here. The mine's getting laid down. How many units is this, though? No Goliaths, actually. One Goliath with this drop, which is going to be enough for this one Wraith, and it's only 3 tanks, so actually this drop was pretty worthless. Dandy deals with it very efficiently. Well, it looks like, yeah, extremely efficiently. Nothing was killed. The dropships are going to get away, though, which is really, really good for TerrOr. You can see, though, the supply is starting to skyrocket. And not just that, but TerrOr will also start building a bank. So even if Dandy does manage to somehow split this map, TerrOr will have so many resources to work with to get into battlecruisers, to get all his upgrades, or to just continuously make tanks or keep expanding. So, even though it looks like Dandy's putting up a fight, he is significantly behind.
Well, we see that TerrOr is continuing to reinforce the right side of the map, but that gives Dandy access to the left side, and he's going to push and take the mid-left as his 5th base, and he may push all the way to top left and try and split the map in that direction. More dropships are probably loaded up, and this is going to be a huge attack from TerrOr onto the low ground. Vulture comes in first. He also has that Vessel. Needs to use D-Matrix, though. He's going to end up losing the Vessel, but he casts a D-Matrix in time. Meanwhile, Dandy is moving to top left, but is he turning around? No, he just taps out, and that's going to be TerrOr taking game 1.
Yeah, GG is called by Dandy. Yeah, man, I mean, that was just a back and forth game. I feel like if Dandy just made kind of a critical mistake with trying to take that expansion instead of taking 6 o'clock. If you take 6 o'clock, you can line up your tanks along that base, and they're covering your natural and your 6 o'clock base. But when you take that 3rd o'clock, you have to start lining up your tanks differently, kind of like more vertically rather than horizontally. And in any case, we saw how TerrOr found that angle where most of Dandy's tanks weren't actually fighting in that initial engagement. So Dandy, before his tanks even got all in range to fight, 1 or 2 of them fell. And then being only on 3 factories versus the 4 factories of TerrOr, not to mention that TerrOr just had the factories out faster as well, just couldn't keep up in production, and TerrOr basically rode that advantage to victory.
Yeah, the timing from TerrOr to move out then was slick, because we know that Dandy was about to be on 7 factories, so if TerrOr had waited like 1.5 minutes, Dandy was up in supply after that fight, which is surprising. Yeah. So TerrOr had a small window, capitalized on it, and transitioned it into a victory. However, Dandy looked, not bad. He had his +2 a little late in comparison to TerrOr, as you pointed out, but I am a little bit worried for TerrOr, seeing him A move into tanks. That's usually a recipe for disaster. Now, we're getting into our second game. It's going to be map pick for Dandy. I don't think we have... Oh, we do have the pick. It's going to be Polypod coming at us. So again, just standard ladder maps. And, Fujikura messaged me on Discord, and actually, Peter Castle is one of the Peruvian presidential candidates. His name is Pedro Castillo, but to make him, I guess, more mainstream, they gave him an American name. Hey, I'm just reading off what he told me. So
that's really funny.
Yeah, he's not the footballer that people are talking about in chat. He is actually a Peruvian presidential candidate.
TerrOr is a funny guy, man. Like, every time I tune into his stream, like, lurk in there. He has a great personality. He's just a great guy, and just funny dude. So I'm not surprised actually that I was gonna say, man, because there's no way it's this football. Like the first thing that comes up in the Google search is this like washed up boomer footballer that plays for a no-name team in England, but obviously that wasn't, you know, maybe that could be it too, you know, just obscure references. That's always nice, you know. Nyokin's full of them, but Peter Castle.
Yeah.
Peter Castle.
Well,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Polyport is going to be a big game too.
Yeah, so this is Dandy's pick, as we pointed out. Again, another ladder map. Nothing unusual. This time around, because it is such a big map, I think we might see the gases expand. However, because TerrOr pulled out this hybrid gas and then evaluate, I actually think he's going to be the one to consistently go for this. But on this particular map, I'm predicting an 8 Rex in the center of the map, put aggression onto Dandy, because I really think Dandy's going to go for gases or even 14 CC here. And I think TerrOr wants to lay down the law that, hey, not allowed to do stuff like this. You're going to have to keep in mind that I have this in my arsenal. What do you think we might see on Polyport? Are we just going to see the same opener?
From
either person.
I mean, Dandy did go for a very standard opener, so wouldn't be surprised to see him throw that out again. Or, I mean, Dandy does really like the gases expand, so... And Polypoid, it's not that bad of a map for it. 4-player maps are generally the go-to, or basically you just really need long rush distances. But on Polypoid, sometimes it can backfire. I'm surprised by TerrOr's build order. I don't know if he'll keep doing it. He might. I mean, it's stable. We'll have to see. Polypoid is going to be the map here. The players are ready. TerrOr is up 1-0. Let's see if Danny can even up the score.
So in the bottom right, the footballer, it is TerrOr.
And in the bottom left, it is Dandy.
What's interesting about TerrOr's build is when you look at it and you think about, okay, well, he's getting gas. What is he looking for to determine whether he's going to continue going for a factory?
I don't think it's a flex build, because it's not a flex build. The thing is, I feel like as soon as you commit to not putting the SCVs on gas, you're committing to taking a command center. If it was a real flex build, he would mine the 100 gas first, then take SCVs off, and then decide. And it's a bit more gracious with the timing there. But I think it's just the build where literally you just want to get Rax expand going, but with the fast factory timing to cover some kind of tank push.
I actually agree with that. I don't think it is a flex build. I think it is just intended to make sure you don't die to a fast push if you go for the gasless expand. Now both players ended up going for just standard depot timing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dandy is building a depot somewhere in his base. And no 8 racks this time around from TerrOr, as you can see, the box spam. You know, there was a time where box spam was not a thing, Mihai. Did you know that? Did you know that?
No.
No? You were just born with it when you installed StarCraft? You were box spamming right on the box?
When I was a little 13, 14-year-old lad playing Warcraft 3, they were box spamming already. This was in 2004 or something.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
You played Warcraft 3 before you played Brood War?
Yeah, well, I played StarCraft, I played StarCraft first, obviously, when I was really young, and I even played BNet too. But then, the first time I actually queued 1v1s and stuff, it was in Warcraft 3.
I see.
And then one time, I played StarCraft, we installed StarCraft in the school's computer laboratory, whatever it's called, I don't know what it's called in English, but the computer room, right?
Yeah.
We were all playing StarCraft there. And then I was like, haha, look at this micro, it's really funny. You can pull back the Guardian that's shooting. And I was making fun of the game because I was like, this isn't Warcraft 3. Oh, how naive I was.
Well, you made a good switch, swapping into Brood War. Now, funny enough, I was not expecting to see Gasless expand from TerrOr, but that's the case. He's not going for that hybrid build. He's going to be the one going with the greedy opener. And Polypoid, I have trouble defending versus Gasless regardless of the map. But this map in particular...
I mean, okay, let's just put it like
yeah,
it
hit me
is.
with it. Yeah, hit me with the thing.
This is possibly the best opener possible for TerrOr on this map. He gets the first scout first. Not only that, Dandy gets last scout. And Dandy's not actually facing the high ground. So even if, Dandy, if he were top right, it would be a bit easier for him to start getting a contain on the high ground. And that's really a headache to deal with when you're going for a Rax expand here on this map. But literally, this is the best possible opening TerrOr could hope for.
And actually what we just saw right there was, I think Dandy was building a Vulture, saw that it's gasless and canceled it. So this isn't even a fast add-on. There's no potential for a tank push anymore. If he tank pushes, this is suicide. Yeah. This will never work. Or TerrOr has to botch his attack for it to work. Now, second refinery is extremely quick. That means that this is most likely going to be a 2-port follow-up.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's no reason to get this gas so early. And 2-port is pretty... I mean, it's going to for sure be 1-port. Yeah, 2-port. There you go. 2-port is the most safe way to follow up a fast expansion build like this. And you can see TerrOr... what's kind of the consistent trend here in TerrOr's builds, both these games, is that TerrOr wants to get a fast expansion going, but he is getting it with the most defensive kind of mindset. Like I think TerrOr just wants to bait Dandy into all-inning him. Maybe that's his game plan here, because first game with the factory was so fast. Now second game 2-port, most of the time you can hold a lot of things when you're Rax expanding with just fact port and good micro. So this 2-port is a huge commitment to playing defensively, but luckily for Dandy, he's actually getting an add-on or rather an armory and an academy really quickly, so he's going to be just fine. And honestly, when these two rates come out and when you go into 2-port and it doesn't do any damage, you're kind of not in the best spot.
Yeah, I think that this was a blunder from TerrOr. If this was different spawns, like if Dandy was top left or top right, for example, where he can't instantly go to the natural and see, oh, you have gas super early, it can only be Wraith, I think this is a better opener. So this was a bit of a misstep in my opinion. 2-port Wraith, huge commitment, as you mentioned. What would have been an ultra mind game is if he had built the refinery and then ended up building mass factories. That is something I'll be thinking about in the future. But as played, that did not happen, and now the Wraiths are spotted. Goliath is already out, and neither of these starports had the add-on coming down. So this is just pure Wraith with no cloak anywhere near or anywhere anytime soon coming in. Okay, well, now I guess it started, but still, Dandy already has scans, so this Wraith play is not going to do very much.
Yeah, and committing to the cloak is huge here. When you usually go for just the 1-port play, you can, if you see that your opponent went for a fast armory, you can just back off. Be like, okay, I'll make 1 or 2 Wraiths just to snipe the Rax, just to get some scouting intel, and then I can accelerate my transition into the factories. But when you go for 2 ports, you're kind of locked into making Wraiths because your factories are going to be really late, and you have to kind of sit on the tank Wraith composition, which is obviously good, but it's very, very slow paced, very defensive. And Dandy using this opportunity exactly what he should be doing, taking a fast third base. I mean, there's nothing TerrOr can do about this but expand himself. So really beautifully played here. And these Wraiths, I mean, when you get a decent amount of Wraiths up, like 6, even 8, they can go around and snipe tanks or Goliaths even that aren't masked up, and you have to be kind of careful here. But Dandy already has an eBay, he has turrets everywhere, he has Goliaths. I mean, Dandy is in a really good spot.
Well, turrets you know, they're somewhat cheap, but not really what you want to build, and you don't want to build tons of them in TVT. He does have what seem to be potentially 4 turrets going up. I know there's one at the natural also. Now keep in mind, guys, these wraiths are super expensive. You can almost think of them as every single wraith could have been a factory. And seeing that Dandy is going for a 3rd command center, imagine if TerrOr had built 1 starport and then built like 1 wraith and went into like 5-fac instantly. He would have so many vultures and tanks coming out, and Dandy would kind of be in trouble because his standing army is like 4 Goliaths and 2 tanks, and that's it. So Dandy getting away with a bit of murder here, taking the 3rd command center. And when I saw those multiple factories going down for TerrOr, I'm kind of feeling bad because I don't think that he's going to be able to hit this slick timing that he wants to hit. He's going into 5-fac, but by then this 4 tank count is probably going to be something like 8 or so.
2-port 5-fac is something that Shiny's done to me, and it's actually really sick. But I feel like because Dandy already knows that it's 2-port, and because wraiths were already bled for TerrOr, and because it's polypoid, I mean, where does TerrOr push with this? You know, he can't really go to... I mean, where does he push? Like, the only base that I can see be jeopardized in this situation is maybe mid-left.
Yeah, mid-left, what would be great is if he puts the tanks on the low ground below the 3rd base, and that cuts off tanks and vultures coming from the main of Dandy, and then it allows these vultures to kind of just crush through the 3rd base. Or he can just straight up send all the tanks to the top side. I mean, as we mentioned before on Shakura's, going for an attack like this makes you extremely vulnerable to a counterattack. And he does get into position though. Now, remember, this is not a lot of units from TerrOr, so something like SCVs all of a sudden become super strong. That's 1 tank from Dandy already gone because the SCVs just got on top of him. That's going to be a 2nd one going down. However, it appears it is just barely enough to force a command center liftoff.
This is really difficult to deal with when you're in Dandy's shoes, but the solution is quite simple. I mean, he has high ground. He can just, if he plays passively or patiently here and methodically, he can push these tanks away, and then he's going to be in an amazing spot because he killed all the wraiths, killed a bunch of tanks. There's no 3rd base here for TerrOr, no armory even. I mean, this is just such a bad position to be in as TerrOr. But if Dandy does not retake his 3rd base, if he just commits to flying his command center to this mineral only, that's a bit of a lost opportunity, I feel like. Though it makes sense, but it just is going to take so long for the command center to reposition. It's going to take so long to get SCVs mining again. And it's only 4 tanks that are on low ground. You could easily push those away, especially because you have vision. So really, I mean, this attack from TerrOr did way more damage than it should have. And that's going to allow him to even it up.
Yeah, you can see he's starting to run away with the supply. It's still 6-fac versus 6-fac. What I thought TerrOr was going to take bottom middle, and that would have been a great base to take because that's a contested base. And anytime you take a contested base, it forces pressure onto the opponent to make a move. Like, they can't just sit there. They have to do something about it. Now, I have to say, this replay kind of looks broken right now because not only is TerrOr floating a lot of resources, we've got tons and tons of idle SCVs from Dandy, and I find that unlikely. So we're going to be going into TerrOr's point of view right now. We see that there is action happening on the map, and you see TerrOr is not floating that amount of money.
Yeah, Dandy, well, TerrOr is actually in a crazy good position. Both players streaming. TerrOr is taking that 6 o'clock base, which is nice actually. It's a good move. He has a huge minefield as well covering the entrance there, and most of his units are pushed up to cover it, and now that's putting on pressure. Dandy, of course, in the bottom right, he sees that there's a base being built at 6 o'clock. Ooh, and actually there's room for him to get to this base. Those mines aren't going to stop those units forever, but actually TerrOr already repositioning a couple of tanks and having the eBay fly over. Mine's not cleared out, so Dandy really taking a risk of pushing these tanks into that nook there, but he is going to get them sieged up. Though with the high ground, you can see how effective it's going to be for TerrOr. Some nice shots, though. Actually, Dandy does pick off the tank somehow with some sick focus fire, so it looks like he's pushing through to the 6 o'clock.
That is a lot of tanks from Dandy moving into the bottom position, and TerrOr was just not ready for it. Now, the tanks can range the command center, I think, from the low ground, so TerrOr is not going to be able to just mine here if the tanks just continue to stay at that current position. However, he could long distance mine the gas if he wanted, and actually, it seems that that position at top left had more than 4 tanks because there are 6 sitting there. So that was a stronger attack than we anticipated. Meanwhile, those tanks are repositioning down to the low ground, and it could start to get weird. Wow, yeah, we need to lift that command center, or at least, yeah, reposition it right there and just take the gas. That's fine for Terran. He's got the mineral only, so it's not like he's going to be lacking minerals. Okay, yeah, he does not want to overstep here. In TVT, it's about positioning and taking favorable trades. You do not want to overstep, especially with units like vultures and tanks that can swing so heavily one side or the other.
Yeah, but this late into the game, having a third base mineral only that Dandy has is going to be a huge factor in boosting his production. I mean, you can see he's actually ahead around 15 supply. He will be able to make a bunch of vultures and just brute force his way into positions. That's a lot of tanks. If he can clear out this middle side that kind of TerrOr has, which is mostly just mines, he's gonna have a good attack path into the main base. But actually, it looks like he wants to take this top left position, or the mid left rather, for his 4th base.
Yeah, but TerrOr also has the mineral only, and he has that third gas being mined at bottom middle, so it's basically even right now. Supplies look dangerously close. Smartly, TerrOr is repositioning his tanks at top left, and I see that he's moving units to the top position, so he wants to contest this third gas taken from Dandy. You can see Dandy is also starting to siege up all of his tanks. Supplies are at 160 for him. Damn, that is so much supply for both players. But Dandy is really in a rough position because where does he go? Like, if he goes to the top side, he's going to be intercepted by tanks. If he goes to the right side, there's a million mines. TerrOr could reposition his tanks in time, set up a contain, and, you know, there's complete map control for TerrOr right now. He can start taking top right. Now, Dandy is breaching that mid-left base, but you can see TerrOr's instantly moving up in that position. He's going to send more tanks, I think, onto the high ground and contest it again.
Yeah, it looks like those tanks got cleared up, so Dandy will try and take that base, but as you mentioned, I mean, TerrOr's already quick to move. He's moving his entire army. I mean,
Yeah.
What?
I mean, gas is so important in TVT, you do not want this guy to get it.
Yeah,
And,
but
yeah.
I mean, this is a huge commitment. I mean, the entire middle of the map is open now, but will Dandy be fast enough to reposition tanks? It doesn't seem like it. He could cut off this entire army and keep it stranded in the middle of the map, but instead prematurely sieges up, and it just looks like TerrOr has a chokehold on Dandy. And to be honest, like looking at both of these games, TerrOr just seems to be a leg up in this matchup, though. You know, they did lead off a couple of tanks here and there. Not the best movement from TerrOr, but I mean, Dandy is just in such a tough spot because, like you mentioned, I think TerrOr's got that third gas to work with.
Yeah, and now Dandy is going to clear out these tanks, but you can see TerrOr's already moving into position to retake it. Now, something I noticed on Dandy's screen was I think he's going into Wraith, so this is pretty much the Hail Mary. He's on 2 gases, on like 100 factories, and he's going Wraith. Like, it doesn't get more all-in than this. And he builds an additional factory. This guy's a madman. Now, he's trading so effectively at this third base now, he should be able to secure it. Meanwhile, I know TerrOr built an additional command center, but I don't see him taking a base on mid-right anywhere. Tanks are dying left and right for TerrOr. This was a big misstep from him.
Yeah, that was a good trade here for Dandy. I mean, I don't get what TerrOr's doing. Like, he's just fighting this at this high ground base. It makes no sense, really. Taking the worst trades, and instead of, you know, that's the thing with watching sometimes non-Korean TVT is that everyone's just a bit too aggressive. It's more consistent to just split the map in two and start taking bases, but these players are trading blow for blow instead, and that can backfire. I mean, you know, TerrOr's been in the driver's seat non-stop this game, but if he's not careful, Dandy might come back.
Dude, he built another factory. He's on something like 10 facts right now. Now we see TerrOr is taking mid-right, so he's going to have another base. Command Center is going to start being built for Dandy at mid-left, so he's going to have a third gas coming in about a minute or so, but his main natural basically dry. However, Doom Drop incoming from TerrOr. He's probably going to go through the bottom side of the map. He knows that with all the pressure he's put on the top side, Dandy's really going to be skimping for defense on the bottom side.
Well, this looks like Dandy is actually cutting across the map where really he shouldn't be able to. I mean, you should have a nice tank line here as TerrOr, but TerrOr going in for a counter drop. That is 4 dropships unloading on top of a couple of factories, but this is going to be a nightmare to deal with, actually. I don't think Dandy has any units in position.
Did he unsiege?
He just now noticed this drop. He's pulling all the boys to try and deal with it, but I mean, SCVs are really strong in this type of situation, but it looks like TerrOr is trading well regardless. He has nice focus fire on to the tanks that are coming in. So many factories, like you mentioned, Nyokin, for Dandy. Surprised that he can actually make out of all of them, but to be honest, both players are so low on upgrades that probably that's how they're affording this, but
it forced all of Dandy back. All of those units that were pushing across the map have repositioned back towards the main, and now TerrOr is going to be the one setting up a massive containment through the center of the map.
Well, it looks like TerrOr again back in the driver's seat. I mean, TerrOr's just been kind of in a really solid spot non-stop.
I would like to see TerrOr just stop where he is right now. Like, if he just holds this position, what does Dandy do? He can't take top left anymore. He can't go split map scenario anymore. He doesn't have anything to actually get over there unless he drop ships across the map. Like, he just is going to get out-mined. Also, remember, TerrOr this whole time continuing to mine that gas at the bottom middle.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, TVT is... You know, sometimes you just have to put the brakes on. Just take your time, take a couple of bases. But, you know, to be fair to TerrOr, he has been expanding this whole time. He does have that base in the mid-right. You would expect someone to have top right at this point as well, and you know, TerrOr is still not mining from 6 o'clock. He's only mining the gas from there, so not the richest mineral income for him, especially because he, you know, both players have mined out their main and natural mineral fields. This
is a huge attack from Dandy. Actually, Dandy's up 20 supply, and he's going to try and push the issue. That is a lot of Goliaths, and that's not the army comp that you want for TerrOr. He loses a lot of his tanks, and now Dandy is going to have access to the top side because he cleared that out. His macro is incredible. I don't know how he's able to build flat out more units than TerrOr, but you can see that supplies are now heavily in favor of Dandy, and now he's slowly creeping towards the top side of the map, and TerrOr's not aggressively taking top right at all.
Yeah, this is so weird. I mean, Dandy has so much supply. He's maxed, and TerrOr is at 150 supply. Will he be able to hold on here?
Is he attacking? He's attacking into this. This guy's a crazy person. There isn't that many tanks. He's plowing through all of them. What was it? Just 5 tanks? There's like 15 for Dandy. And now Dandy is going to be the one that's going to try and start splitting the center of the map. And this is a smart move. He doesn't want to overstep. A lot of his tanks took a decent amount of damage. And I'm trying to see. He also has not sent an SCV to top left, but he needs to try and start securing a split map position.
Yeah, TerrOr unfortunately kind of looked away to macro while that fight was happening, didn't get the optimal focus fire on the tanks. You got to make sure that you just get the good trades there, but overall it wouldn't have mattered, obviously, because Dandy has just the overwhelming supply lead at this point, and this is going to open up the map for Vultures to really assert more map control with mines.
Oh, Dandy has more vultures, so he's going to win this fight if they do fight. You can see he sends one vulture, go on hold position, draw those vultures, or keep the vultures at bay for a while, so he has time to ransack this SCV line. Now, because both players have so many command centers, I don't know if this is really a very impactful move, because they're just going to have so many the ability to rebuild the SCV count so fast that it's not a big deal. But what is a big deal is that the supply is just consistently much higher. Does that say like 140 for TerrOr and basically max for Dandy? 195?
Yeah, well, Dandy is non-stop max because he's making non-stop vultures. But these vultures really, like, all it takes to nullify these vultures is good tank positioning, and slowly but surely you can see TerrOr is bringing up tanks to secure top right, and once he sieges tanks up on this high ground, these vultures from Dandy are going to be dead supply. He's going to have to use them to bust somewhere, or he's going to have to throw them away. Dandy needs to start expanding as well, the top left, and it looks like we're just going to get into a nice split map situation here.
Yeah, this might go the distance. We see that Dandy sent multiple SCVs to top left, so he might triple expand. He might take top left, main, nat, and potentially top middle. He's got secure. Well, he's got a contain through the center of the map and his high ground. So really not a lot. Oh, he scans the Wraith switch. This is something that I always fall apart to. Is it's like, wow, I'm doing very well, and then out of nowhere, like 20 Wraiths show up. I'm like, oh, I'm actually not doing very well. And that scan is going to make sure that that scenario doesn't happen, because if you look at what he has, there's almost no anti-air. What was that, 3 Goliaths and that's it? So really critical scan right there. Meanwhile, TerrOr has started to take top right finally.
I just can't believe my eyes, Nayak, and I can't believe we're going to get into a split map situation. TerrOr was so dominant all game. All he needed to do was just chill for a second, and unfortunately, Dandy found a way back into this game, and now I can't really see either player winning from an attack. I mean, right now, at least not before they start taking this these extra bases. And it looks like Dandy is a bit faster at expanding almost, but yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. The 12 o'clock base is going to be very important because that's the only contested base left on the map. And it looks like TerrOr is not going to be able to acquire it, so he needs to kind of push out at 6 o'clock and start mining that base for himself.
And we do see he's going to start taking that natural. Also, he's transferred SCVs to top right, so that's going to be up and running. What I would like to see is, does either player have double armory? Like, has either player started switching into BCs just yet, or at least have the upgrades for when they end up switching into BCs? For now, we see that it's about 7 Wraiths maybe for TerrOr. Meanwhile, I think matching Wraith count for Dandy. But I'm liking Dandy's position a little bit more just because he has more control. Well, actually, I guess it is pretty much even.
Oh, he's going to go for a bust here on the high ground.
Nuts.
That is 4 tanks. It's only 4 tanks, though, to be
it's only
fair.
4?
Oh, that's 5 tanks. That's 5 tanks. It is high ground. High ground is incredible, but there's no mines to supplement with these tanks. Oh my god, the trades are still insane. But somehow, Dandy pushes through. And this is terrible for Dandy, actually, or for TerrOr, because... you know, all of a sudden top right is exposed.
Yep, and that also means that Dandy's going to have easier access to getting top middle. We can see that Dandy is the one to mix in a couple Valkyries. So even if there's no, well, if there's no Goliath in these dropships, the Wraith battle may go in favor of Dandy, and that will be all he needs to clean up the race.
That's a sick drop.
Or clean up the tanks, I mean. Yeah, these Wraiths are all going to die because Dandy has a bigger fleet and he has Valkyries.
Yeah, Dandy already anticipating the switch into the air battle. Valkyries are going to be really, really big in defeating the Wraiths here. I actually wonder if either player has air upgrades. You know, it's pretty hard to tell from this view, but
goodbye, Wraith.
It's like Valkyries completely destroying that Wraith fleet.
This is why it's so important to find out if they're going for a Wraith switch, because if they do, and you're able to pop out even just 2 Valkyries, you can see murder everything.
He's gonna lose that command center when they're like at 12 o'clock. Like, it's building, it's very low. That tank is still sieging it down. I'm looking at the mini map. It looks like it's out of range now, so not gonna lose that 12 o'clock command center. And I mean, Dandy is in such a sick spot, but you know, TerrOr can still mine from top right, so game's not over.
Both players are completely starved for gas. Like, Dandy sub 100 gas, TerrOr is really low also. He's going to have an influx now that he's got top right up and running, or about to be up and running. But you can see the stranglehold that Dandy has over the center of the map. It does give him access to top middle. It prevents reinforcements to top right. And this might be the only opportunity TerrOr has to move into position. Dandy unsieged.
Well, he's going to only leave a couple of tanks and then reposition his units elsewhere, putting down a bunch of starports. Dandy is at top left, so already anticipating a switch into something, though he is very, very light on gas, and he's not expanding at 12 o'clock, which is really surprising. I mean, he has more than enough resources to do so, and he has the position on the map, so really kind of a missed opportunity to just grab that extra gas as well. Looks like TerrOr is pushing through the middle of the map, but Dandy has tanks all over the place, playing this very beautifully. But he needs to expand at 12 o'clock, man. What are you waiting for? That's the base that's gonna put you over the edge to win the game. It's his victory condition, really, and he's not expanding there still, man.
Yeah, he does need to take it pretty. Okay, there he goes. And that's going to be a huge swing in his favor because bottom middle might actually be mined out. Now TerrOr's busting through. And this army is vicious. There is so much stuff here. And he's going to easily overwhelm this. But Dandy has another army coming through the back. He does not want to give up this high ground. He does not want to give up the center of the map. And now he's putting on that add-on so he can start pumping out some battle cruisers. And he's going to start heading into the mid game, or into the late game, I mean.
Yeah, kind of an oversight there for Dandy, not quite positioning his tanks on the high ground well enough and not leaving enough tanks there, so loses position on that high ground, which is not insignificant. But looking at TerrOr's spot here, I mean, what does he do? He scans 12 o'clock, he does see that there's a command center being built there. He is pressed to act, really. Dandy is going to push through in the middle of the map. Dandy's non-stop proactiveness for him, even though he does already have... See, that's the thing, like, Dandy doesn't really need to do anything here. He needs to just sit on his side of the map and make battlecruisers. Like, he has the extra base on his opponent.
Yeah, sometimes you don't have to actually do anything. If you watch Artozas' stream, a lot of his opponents are masters at that strategy. They don't do anything the whole game, and then they just show up with 100 ultras and end up sealing the victory. And that's exactly what Dandy should do. He's gonna have econ advantage. He's already got positional advantage. At the very least, all he should do is have like some amount of tanks just walk back and forth with constant scans, repositioning, make sure he can't get busted anywhere, and that's it. And he needs to get rid of these vultures. They're useless. He needs to just spam the hell out of tanks and go BCs at the same time.
Yeah, this is, I mean, there's kind of an art to getting into battlecruisers because it's very easy to kind of skimp out too much on your ground army, and then all of a sudden you're transitioning into battlecruisers, but you get dropped or you get A-moved, and that's actually what TerrOr has going for him. He has a lot of dropships, and there's not quite enough missile turrets on the map just yet, I feel like, for Dandy to really dissuade any kind of drop. Now, here's a question for you, Nick. I've been mostly watching Dandy's perspective. How about you?
Well, I've been watching both. I'm waiting to see if he drops top middle.
I mean, I watch both, but I'm saying, like, when nothing's happening, I tend to watch Dandy.
I don't know if I watch one or the other, but I think he's about to bust top middle. I'm hoping there's some Goliaths mixed in because there are Wraiths. Turrets are, yeah, there are some Goliaths there, and this might be a busted base, and this is critical for TerrOr. He needs to eliminate this base, or at least deny it.
Well, this drop is huge, actually, because he is going to be able to siege up tanks.
He hasn't started transitioning. You see that science facility? There's no add-on for TerrOr.
For TerrOr, yeah, it looks like he's just making Wraiths maybe, or drops. I don't know what's out of those control towers, but it looks like Dandy is going to be able to clean up this drop, and it's really important that he keeps mining that gas. You know, at the end of the day, I suppose, TerrOr does have 6 o'clock. It looks like TerrOr's actually going for a small push now, just clearing out some units on his side of the map, but now I wonder if Dandy actually has any units covering that. And No, he doesn't. The middle of the map is wide open. It looks like Terra is hitting that pre-BC timing. It's almost similar to like when the Protoss is going for carriers and you're going for a nice push here. But Dandy repositions in time.
That was a ton of tanks being repositioned. And I thought that for a second, Terra might go back in macro and run into death. But he ends up seeing it, backs off. First BCs are out. Yamato upgrade coming in. You see that Dandy is, again, still very, very low on gas. Meanwhile, 2 Goliaths, that's not going to cut it, man. So here comes another one. But these BCs, well, one of the BCs might actually die.
Yeah, I mean, that is a Terra. That's not a lot of battlecruisers just yet. Battlecruisers also kind of have to build up to a certain number for them to really be effective, but clearly the battlecruiser production is much faster for Dandy. He is transitioning much earlier. Still has a bunch of vultures that are completely, totally worthless and eating up supply. He is basically maxed. Needs to get rid of those ASAP. Looks like Terror is trying to still clear up some positions. It can be tricky, man, when you're playing battlecruisers because that's so much supply in a very immobile unit. And Terror's making the best of this. He's trying to get some position on the map, but look, I mean, Dandy has tanks where it matters. He's covering his mining bases. Now he has 6 BCs up. He has double armory, getting the air upgrades. This is going to be a huge attack from Terror. He needs to make this work, but the Valkyries are in position, killing all the dropships. They don't even unload all the units, I don't think, and actually Dandy has enough tanks to hold on to this 12 o'clock position.
Yeah, he's going to hold on. He might have to lift, but he can reposition that command center down
Well, he can
to
bring
the
the
bottom.
battlecruisers now.
Yeah, he can bring the battlecruisers too. My opinion of when you start going battlecruisers and you're facing this type of style where the other player's just not switching at all, what I like to do is you just start sacking SCV. So then there's not this huge discrepancy in the air battle. Now he's going to feel confident moving into these Goliaths. He's going to trade 1 BC, but he's going to get so many Goliaths and so many tanks now. And he's going to push this back, and he's going to be able to reposition this command center.
Yeah, well, this game's going to be very hard for Terror to bring back, because that's a lot of battlecruisers, and Terror just doesn't quite have the supply. Terror should just be permanently maxed if he wants to have a chance in here with a bunch of Goliaths. This is going to be a good fight for Terror. He's going to snipe a couple of battlecruisers, but these Goliaths do go down ultimately. Though still getting to 1 battlecruiser for their efforts. More Goliaths coming in, but finally the battlecruisers are supplemented by tanks, and it looks like Dandy is going to be able to slowly push Terra off of his high ground here. And once that happens, top right is going to be ripe for the taking. And to be fair, I mean, Terra doesn't really have any targets to counterattack on the other side of the map, so it's hard to abuse the battlecruiser's mobility at this point, because if Terror goes to bottom left, I mean, Dandy just doesn't even care. He has nothing there.
Yeah, you know, actually, Dandy could lose. Like, if he... Okay, I'm not saying you should do this, but he could, like, just float all of his factories to top left and only defend top left. Bottom left, nothing on that side of the map matters anymore. Everything's depleted over there. All he has to do is defend top left, and he's primed to take this game. And, of course, constantly scan to make sure that there's no BC switch. You can see that's what he's doing right now. He's like, okay, dude, are you switching yet? No? Okay, well, that's fine. I can just sit here with my tanks again. And the army comp from Terror is strong, but just how does he get through Tank Man? Like, it's going to be so hard to do that. He doesn't have anything that trades favorably versus the tanks. He has Goliaths. He doesn't have vessels either for D-Matrix or something like that. Oh my god, he's getting some of his tanks murdered right now.
Well, looks like Terror is pushing through here, but that's a lot of tanks to supplement these battlecruisers. Goliaths are just so nuts. It's quite hard to play with battlecruisers, honestly. Like,
yeah, but you can just Yamato. Like, both players, if they just chill and one player just hits the Yamato button, eventually he's going to win the game because he one-shots every unit.
Exactly. Like sometimes it's just about the patience in this matchup, especially. Both players at times try to do a bit too much, but you know, it looks like Dandy is getting into that stranglehold position. There's no way I see him losing this game. The 50, what is this? Oh, 34-minute game. I thought for a second that was 54 minutes, but yeah, it looks like not quite 3-3 upgrades on the battlecruisers. Dandy is making progress, but where is he pushing to, man? I mean, Terror's mining top right. There's nothing bottom right, dude. Just go kill his mining bases.
Well, he doesn't need to attack anywhere. Just Yamato the units for free over and over and over. It's so cost effective. And he's not losing any battlecruisers either. So even if Terror's like sitting there and he has like 10 starports or something, and he's like, oh, well, I'm just going to trade this supply and build BCs. Well, I mean, you're not killing any of the BCs. So if Dandy scans the BC switch, he's still fine. Now, dropships got loaded up, and in my experience, this is the way you beat battlecruisers, is you have a huge attack from the low ground, and then you carpet bomb directly on top of the BCs with the drops. And this might be one way for victory for TerrOr, but
man,
he just doesn't have the army anymore.
Yeah,
it's 10 BCs, and it's a lot of tanks, too.
TerrOr's going to go and attack 12 o'clock, I feel like. Nope, he's wrapping around. Trying to do exactly what you said, Naokin. That's a lot of Goliaths, and man, I guess he heard you or something. He was carpet bombing some Goliaths on top of Dandy's tanks. It looks like we lost TerrOr's speed.
Dandy needs to start running. Dandy needs to start running because he doesn't have the tank support anymore. He needs to get the hell out of there. And this is one way you get your BCs isolated, and these are Terran units. We don't have recall. We can't just recall across the map. He's going to be forced to take this engagement. However, because he has so many BCs, he's still going to win the battle. And there's the GG. Dandy, he's going to steal a win away from TerrOr, who looked so dominant in the early stages of the game.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate. TerrOr had a huge lead that game and just threw it away trying to attack too much. And yeah, I mean, what else can we talk about that game? It's just mostly that.
Yes, as we've stated multiple times, TVT is about positioning. Sometimes you win the game simply by just being in a better position, not because you attack better, just simply forcing them to attack into you. And TerrOr, I loved his move to the third base, but then he got, I don't know, too aggro, I guess. And Dandy with the 10 factories on 2 gas somehow, I don't know how that happened. But he just pumped out way too much stuff that TerrOr couldn't keep up.
Yeah, somehow TerrOr's macro just wasn't there, and when that happens, like Dandy just had so many units, and he was virtually maxed in that mid game. Somehow TerrOr was really lagging behind in supply. You kind of just assume that it's probably because TerrOr just didn't make enough SCVs or something. So we'll see. Dandy does even up the score. That means we're going to go for a quick break here before we get into the final games of this series, so don't go anywhere. Has a lid on it, dude. Like his container. Yeah, that's the lid. It's screwed on tightly there. All right, Ultra is trying to get out from the sides. He's leaking a bit.
Well, I like how TerrOr has kept all of his units at his natural after containing with just 3. Oh, this is just going to be a surround from Ultra. He's going to send in vultures from the front, and he's going to try and bust through the back with drop ships also dropping right on top of the tanks. This was a really nice move from Ultra to be able to clear out his tanks, and he didn't lose a single tank just yet. However, he's got to be careful because TerrOr's matching the drop, and now he has lost one tank. Yeah, it's still alive.
Destroying everything, dude. The bunker just saved TerrOr. I mean, the lid is still on, man.
Is he going to kill that tank also? I think he's going to kill that tank also, and TerrOr's reinforcing this, and this attempted save of his natural is turning into a disaster. Okay, well, this is make or break for him. He's moving all of his units to the top side. Wow, one dropship gets picked off, and now there's nothing to support them, and those are going to be dead dropships. I wonder if this is a bait. I think it is a bait. Yeah, I think it is a bait. He's trying to draw
so many tanks
defense over there. Yeah, that's so many tanks, as we mentioned. Or as I was saying, TerrOr, he's got a massive concave. Ultra busts out, but he loses so much that eventually TerrOr's... Damn, that's... actually, he just got obliterated there. There's only 4 tanks remaining, and Race can clean this up now.
Yeah, he got blasted. He's trying to place a command center there, but Terra ain't gonna have any of that.
They ain't having none of that. Now the Race are gonna slowly tickle these tanks to death. Now, okay, tanks and Vulture's gonna unsiege, and he's just gonna jump on this army, and there is the GG. All right, guys, we are back, and we're going to be getting into Game 3 momentarily. We know what the map is going to be. It's going to be on Eclipse. It's going to be Terra's pick. I know you're excited about this pick because, as Even Zero pointed out to me, this is one of the maps that you can easily split. Almost every time I see a TVT on this map with Artosis, it's some split map scenario. I've seen nukes, seen lockdown, all type of shenanigans on this map. Now, I remember somebody I played recently on this map, they ended up going 14 Command Center, and I was not too thrilled about that.
Yeah, when was that?
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it was about, maybe a month and a half ago. I was not happy.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, but it stands out in my mind. I remember that game.
I'm telling you, man, it's because most people end up putting their racks on the... it's a nice calculated gamble because most people, as you know, put their racks kind of to the edge there on the main base, which is really far from the... it just makes the rush distance huge, and a lot of people don't really scout early because they go for gas. So I feel like 14 Command Center is a good... a lot of times it's a good bet, but obviously if your opponent does absolutely anything else, where it's even a forward racks on the main at the natural or a really quick scout, you're in for a world of hurt. So Eclipse is going to be the map here. Game 3 between Terra and Dandy. Let's get into it.
So in the top right in the blue, taking the game on Polypoid, it is Dandy.
And in the bottom left, in the red, it is Peter Castle.
Peter Castle, man. He's going to get a whole bunch of Google hits after this BSL cast is over. People are going to be checking him out. So, what do you expect to see from Terra? We've seen the hybrid opener. We've seen gasless opener. We're getting more greedy as the games progress. We might see a 14 Command Center because of what you pointed out.
I mean, I feel like if Terra... we saw, Terra seems to want to just bait Dandy into all-inning him or something like that. So if there's a map to do it on, it's definitely this one. Because you are going to get scouted. But I don't know. I feel like so far the depot... It looks... what's weird is that Terra's the one who's paranoid about Dandy doing something crazy. Every single game, right? This time around, he put the depot at the proxy location, at the in base. It looks like Dandy is inside of TerrOr's head, man.
Well, I mean, I'm sure TerrOr saw the Dandy game where he won with 2 Marines, and he's like, no, that is not happening to me. We are going to make sure that there are no shenanigans. And both players end up building that Rax in their base. Dandy is going to put down his gas. We can see that TerrOr has queued up an additional SCV. He may be going for another gasless opener. Okay, that's a... Oh, no. Yeah, okay, that is 13 gas, so just slightly later for TerrOr, but basically mirrored build so far. Now this scout is a little bit faster for TerrOr, so it's going to cut into his econ a tiny bit.
Yeah, but it is nice against something like 14 Command Center, so not a bad idea to scout early in this matchup. I know it used to be the philosophy that people thought early scouting this matchup is kind of pointless. But that's definitely not true. Like SCVs, like especially against Rax Expand or Command Center first, the SCVs are harassing the building SCV at the Command Center can be very, very, very valuable. And TerrOr is going to be inside of the base early before any Marines are out, whereas TerrOr has his own Marine out, so he might just deny scouting. Doesn't look like he's going for the second Marine just yet, but he's not lifting his racks either.
Yeah, he is going for that hybrid opener that we saw in Game 1, so Command Center is going to be coming down pretty soon. As you mentioned, I think that's only 1 Marine, but the SCV left the base, so it doesn't know what this is. Of course, if I'm in Dandy's situation, I see a Marine out and there's no Command Center already, I'm thinking, okay, well, this guy's just going for a factory. But we see that's not the case, so I'm going to have to keep this in mind when I queue ladder in the next, well, from now on, really. So I was not aware that there was this type of hybrid opener. Now the factory comes down for TerrOr. Now, this is the big question to me, is what is Dandy going to do with his factory? Remember last time, after seeing the Command Center, he canceled the Vulture, and there's no add-on just yet, so it seems like that's probably going to be the same follow-up again.
I feel like every time we cast Latin American players, Death Fate is just always there, donating for the cause of LATAM. Well, yeah, he's just doing everything at the same time. Yeah, he has a lot of viewers. Peruvians do, or the South Americans do love their players. And looking at the game, I mean, Dandy is going for a second factory, but it's in base. Oh, he actually did expand. There's a lot of things you can do versus Rax expansion. One is to go siege mode really early.
Oh, that is not what TerrOr wanted to see. The Vulture gets in, and that's going to force a couple SCVs off the line. It already gets a kill. He's looking to get a second kill. There's one of them. It's down to being within 1 shot. So to lose 3 SCVs is heartbreaking for TerrOr here.
I mean, that's definitely going to send him back, but at least he has that quicker Command Center. So, really, I mean, this is obviously really good for Dandy because he's ahead in supply, or he's ahead in worker count with a slower expansion. So basically, he evened out the economic advantage that TerrOr would get. But everything Dandy has is coming faster. His factories are already out. His starport is out. On the way, rather.
This is an interesting move because, as you mentioned, starport's up, but so is Armory. So this is setting up to be potentially a Goliath drop. I know you're not a big fan of that, but this can be annoying if you don't suspect it. You just take a lot of damage. You can't just send Vultures to defend it. You have to actually send real tanky units like tanks. It is annoying to deal with. Now, how the hell did this SCV get into the main of Dandy? And when he sees 2 Goliaths come out, I think he should know that this is already drops, because in no world is any player scouting, seeing 2 factories in the opponent's base and thinking, yeah, I need Goliaths. Nobody thinks like that. It's either I need tanks or I need Vultures. So a crucial scout there from TerrOr, and now this potential Goliath drop, I don't think will deal that much damage when it inevitably comes.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, it's not a huge commitment to drop Goliaths either. You can just pick them back up.
We see that 3rd factory was coming in for Dandy. Gonna put down 4th factory and 5th factory pretty soon, I imagine. Meanwhile, Armory is about to complete for TerrOr, and surprisingly, TerrOr's the one with the lacking factory count this time. Remember, he's ramped up his factory count quite fast in all the games.
Yeah. He's followed factories from Dandy are actually quite fast as well. Not going for the drop just yet. It is on the way, the dropship. It's out now, actually. Making non-stop Goliaths. I mean, how... Okay.
Uh-oh. Well, only 3 is still okay. It will still 2-shot SCVs. And funny enough, I think if TerrOr had the same idea as me that, okay, well, this has to be a Goliath drop. If he was to attack right now, or was moving at this moment, you know, Dandy doesn't have a lot to defend. At the same time, of course, TerrOr would be getting dropped at the same time, but I think just production would be able to clean it up. So, he's just going to move back into position right when that drop comes in, and this really should not do pretty much any damage. As you mentioned, not a big commitment. He can just reload it. It is kind of like a check, like, hey, I got these drop ships. You can't be too greedy. You can't just be out in the center of the map and not defend your main at all. Otherwise, you will get punished. And what I like about dropship play is it draws units out of position. So this factory flood that we see from Dandy could be a nice follow-up.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, dropship play is nice because the drop is out. As long as you don't lose it, the other player has to respect it. Personally, what I like doing is I like sieging up one tank at each command center just to make sure that you know, they have to really commit on top of the tank, and then you have you have units kind of chilling around. But if you have one siege tank at each command center, and then you know that your opponent's going for dropships, you can also put down the eBay, make a couple turrets, and you're totally safe.
Dude, again, Dandy taking a fast 3rd command center despite going for this heavy tech with the Goliath and dropship. You know, he's really lacking on the units. I don't even know if he has siege mode, but he's feeling confident to be able to hold this attack. He does have siege mode. Surprisingly, he's ahead in supply again, 77 to 84.
Yeah, and the only kind of troll part here is that Dandy's just kind of sieging up his tanks in a clump, and they're really less effective than when you spread them out in a line. I don't mind this 3rd command center here from Dandy. The only problem is that he is giving up his high ground here, and if you get into a late game situation, this can be a huge advantage for TerrOr to have the high ground. But Dandy's basically trading position on the map.
Oh no.
For a much faster command center. So if he can use this extra economy to either bust through this or get a significant advantage on the other side of the map, it's going to be worth it. But it's all up to whether or not he can, you know, translate that economic advantage into something else.
Now here's a weird scenario that you don't see that often. There's no pressure on the left side. There's no pressure on the bottom side, obviously. If you're TerrOr here, what 3rd base are you taking? You know, most people look at this and it's like, oh, mid-left, easy. But what about taking bottom middle and bottom right and trying to split the map in that direction? Is that a viable strategy here? Well, we got a Goliath drop in the main, and meanwhile an attack at the 3rd base. So TerrOr's trying to deny this 3rd base, and those tanks are bleeding off for Dandy.
Yeah, Dandy just has to hold on. He has so many tanks that are just chilling, not doing anything, honestly, because he has them all clumped up there. Just not the most effective spread. Dandy was honestly in such a good spot this game. He could have easily defended this attack while putting on pressure with the dropship, and then just smashed off the 3 base. He will still defend, actually, because pulling the SCVs is good. You know, that's the one thing about attacking in this matchup is that if you overextend like that, SCVs are really strong fighters. But Dandy did lose a lot of his workers. His economy got a bit reset here. It is going to give TerrOr some opportunity to expand himself, but TerrOr needs to start expanding, man, or else he's basically all in. He does have position on the map. He can't take that bottom right base. I'm totally in agreement with you, Nayokin. Especially if you have your opponent's high ground, it's really hard for them to attack that. I don't know if I would double expand that bottom right, but I would certainly take one of the bases and then think about taking mid left. But it just doesn't seem like TerrOr wants to take a command center. He's just gonna go for a bust.
Yeah, he's going to bust through the center. He's even pulled some SCVs to soak up some hits. He knows that Dandy has moved all of his units out of position to defend that third base. And, well, what's Terror doing? He's moving to the left side. That's where all the tanks are. And this, I don't think is going to work. Look at that. The tanks on the left side even get shots off. I'm so surprised that Terror moved in that direction. He ends up still having 7 tanks left over. And now this natural is going to be breached. But remember, this is Eclipse. Tanks can sit on the high ground and do a decent amount of damage from the high ground. So I don't know about this. The Rax is in the main, and that's a bit annoying. It not only delays some of these tanks moving out, but it also gives vision.
You know, Dandy's in like a really good spot here, but this is so hard to hold on to that you really just need to be very careful and methodical. And in a tournament setting, it's hard with all the emotions running through you to just clean this up. He is taking his time sieging and unsieging his tanks on the left side here, but his natural is compromised. He will have a lot of units coming out. He needs to just use these SCVs and bust through. Okay, no, this is nice too. Sieging the tanks up, but he does not quite have vision just yet. Push them up a bit more. There you go.
He lost the barracks, so that means Terror doesn't have vision. And now, oh, perfect scan timing. He gets the first shot off, but you can see the power of the high ground. Even though they got off the first shot, 3 tanks take out 4 while only losing 1. So Dandy is going to rebuild his natural, and this is what I was thinking when I saw this happening. I was like, wow, a race switch would be amazing, because Dandy's not thinking about building Goliaths at this point. As I say that, of course he has 2 of them, and meanwhile we've got a drop at top middle, and again, Terror is putting on aggression at the third base, but I don't know if he has critical mass this time.
The thing is, Terror
he doesn't.
He's killing so many SCVs that he's making these attacks worthwhile. He's keeping Dandy down economically, and it's quite clear that Dandy can't even, I mean, he's not mining the gas at his third base. He has to lift this. All Terror needs to secure this win is a command center, dude. He just needs to build a command center, and he's gonna be in this phenomenal spot, because Dandy, as long as he doesn't lose these command centers, as long as he still has SCVs mining, he will inevitably stabilize these 3 bases, and if there's no third base on Terror's side, he will get run over. So,
wow. What I want to see right now from Terror is send tanks and vultures to the third base, but like leave it, oh, a mine hits and kills a tank, but leave it so they're just in range of preventing units from getting on top of the ramp. Because if he can prevent Goliath from getting to top middle, Race will win the game, because that Goliath is at 1 health right now, and there would be no way to send any more anti-air units up there. Another big connection takes out the Goliath, and these 2 tanks are doing way too much damage. Okay, they get taken out now, but you can see, I think Terror realizes that, hey, there's no anti-air there. If I just set up some tanks, I can deny this third base. But as you mentioned, there's still no command center, man. Where is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so frustrating. There you go. Finally. That's all he needs to secure this win. Like, he's doing so much economic damage, and every time I'm looking at this, I'm saying, well, Dandy's in a fine spot, because, well, he kind of is. He just needs to survive. But with that command center coming from Terror, I mean, it's still a long ways off, and I'm surprised that he even built it in base. Usually it's good to build your command centers in base, to not have them kind of delayed by stray vultures, but this time around, he needs to get that command center up and running ASAP. He is doing so much damage. Why is Dandy making dropships? They are so worthless at this point in the game. That dropship is just chilling there. These rates are going to clean up these tanks, and it looks like Terra's just going to do it, man.
Well, I don't know. The SCV repair is pretty crucial right there. It's going to end up saving that 1 tank. Now that other tank is going to fall. And if these tanks can get elevated onto the high ground and take out that tank, then like I said, there's going to be no answer to these raids. Okay, that might be suicide. He doesn't know about those low ground tanks. You got to focus down that tank, man. He ends up reloading up that dropship, and these Goliaths are going to move in position. You can see that if he had those tanks on the low ground, he could have denied these Goliaths from getting in. And as played, Dandy is still going to have his third base, but he has taken so much damage.
I mean, look at his supply. It's just down in the dumps, and he doesn't have that many workers. And finally, Terror is going to secure his third base with full saturation. Now, when all is said and done, I mean, Terror did give up position on Dandy's high ground, and I'm kind of scared, man, because I feel like this game's going to go on another 20 minutes.
Oh, well, if these mines keep connecting and eliminate some of Terror's tanks, we may see that there's going to be another tank going bye-bye. And another tank going bye-bye. 2 tanks die to 2 mines. But this is a sizable vulture tank army overlooking the net. What is he? Okay, thank you. He's not going to attack into it. I was like, dude, you have 100 vultures, but this guy has 100 tanks. Tanks win that fight. You need to just chill. We see Terror is going to double expand, basically. He's taking mid-left at the same time. But Dandy's starting to stabilize. He's going to get his third base up and running now. Look how many SCVs are at the mid-left.
Yeah, I mean, Terra's been making non-stop SCVs this whole time. His economy is flourishing. Dandy is going to move through here. Gets a nice siege tank line, but this isn't like... This move from Dandy is not really securing him the 4th base, which is going to start coming into play here. It is putting on some pressure, but overall it just doesn't serve any purpose having this position on the map right now. He needs to look forward to, or look towards expanding again. But at this point, like, Terror is just in a phenomenal spot. He's already taking a 4th expansion. He's ahead on tempo everywhere. Economically, map-wise, you see he has the high ground as well. He's even defending. He even has map control on this other side of the map now. So Terror is just... He's gonna have to like work really hard to throw this one. I mean, it's so like he's in such a strong spot, much stronger than he was in the Polypoid game. Although honestly, even in the Polypoid game, he was kind of in a similar situation. But on Eclipse here, it's much easier to kind of like figure out that you need to split the map. So I don't think he's gonna make the same mistakes that he made earlier.
We see that Terra's got a lot of money, so I expect to see a command center even go down at top left and even bottom middle sometime soon. Science facility is done for Dandy. I don't know if either player has started +2 weapon, but I know they've had +1 weapon for quite a long time. Dandy spots kind of a weak position on the high ground there. Again, it's just 4 tanks defending, and that might be something that Dandy wants to capitalize on. Meanwhile, the 4th base defense is a little bit stronger. It's got 5 tanks and obviously a bunch of vultures sitting there. +2 has started for Dandy. Still don't know. Oh, not spinning for Terror, so that's a big missed upgrade for him. He's starting to build up his factory count. He's at 6. He's got quadruple add-on, and he's pumping out dropships again.
Yeah, drop man.
It's drop man. And Dandy's looking to make a move here, but I don't think this is going to be successful at all. But he's pushing the issue. He has more tanks, but there is a lot of vultures here. And if they can get any connections with the wall, okay, I guess he's not going to get any connections. But again, this position, as he mentioned, is not like that important for Dandy. What is important is getting position at top middle. If Terror ever gets position at top middle, that's another base that is denied.
Yeah, I mean, he's just trying to push here, but it's not going to help him at all. And he's not going to make any more progress than what he just did. He's going to try and run a couple of vultures to the top side, but look, Terror this time around is playing this map pretty well, you know, having tanks to hold his 4th base. I mean, Eclipse is just so much easier to play than most maps in TVT. It's very straightforward. Polypoid, of course, is much harder to figure out exactly where you need to siege your tanks to cover your bases, but yeah, I mean, Dandy has to take that 4th base, and of course, I mean, Terror can't just sit around either. He's gonna have to take a 5th base at some point here.
Well, Terror did complete his command center, and he is going to be taking bottom middle, and he's even going to try and take bottom right at the same time. So this is critical that Dandy denies one of them, because that would put Terror on 6 bases versus maximum of 5 for Dandy. There's no way for Dandy to take an additional base. There's only 11 on the map, so taking both of these, imperative for Terror, and imperative that Dandy denies at least one of them. We can see that Dandy's now starting to take top middle. His +2 should be kicking in sometime soon. Still don't know if Terror started it just yet. We saw that the army was not spinning a moment ago. Okay, now it is. But we are approaching that max scenario, and Dandy, with knowledge of that vulnerable tank line, he is going to push through the center of the map.
Yeah. I don't know, time and time again. Well, I was gonna say, Dandy's macro overall just seems so much better than Terror's, but then Terror, I guess, has dropships coming with a bunch of units. That's where most of his resources are. I don't understand how Dandy is just outproducing Terror. Like, his expansions and his economy is worse all the time, but somehow has more units. This drop is gonna be huge though, but is it though? Like, that's only 3 tanks.
Yeah. 3 dropships, in my opinion, not critical mass for a Doom drop. You need something, you need at least 5. I think once you get 5, you start hitting this a number where even with an SCV pull, you're going to trade insanely effective. Now we see that Dandy cleaned this up in what? He lost maybe 2 tanks and that's it. And he has a stranglehold over the center of the map. That bottom middle base that was being taken from Terror is going to be denied. And this drop that went into the main, as I saw it walk past that base, I was like, dude, you need to drop on these bases to make sure that that mid bottom right base does not get taken out. And he's now potentially going to lose it, but sending in a lot of tanks now, he is going to clean it up. And he is going to re-secure this base.
Well, Terror still has a significant advantage on the map because he has a 5th base going, and he's going to take this base as well, this other base. Double expanding bot right would be huge for him. Just so many available resources to work with. Of course, the top left base actually has the most amount of mineral patches and the geysers. So like as a single base, it's way more valuable than one base at bottom right, but both bases definitely do outpace the value there. So if Peter Castle can get onto that other base, he will be in a really, really sick spot. Oh, it's like, what is actually shooting that? But then I realized there's tanks there.
The tanks on the low ground end up wiping out 2 tanks, so Terry does need to be somewhat careful moving around that portion of the map. Neither player has put on the BC add-on, so we're not going to see starports flooding anytime soon. Both players are approaching max, and Dandy is the one that's going to start taking top left. I think that is a command center floating to bottom right. I know we had an additional command center being built, but he hasn't landed it there just yet. More drops going to the top left side. Again, I don't think 2 drops or 3 drops is really the number you're looking for, but he's going to go for it, and it's 4 tanks. But remember, these tanks have +2. And they're going to wipe out these unloaded tanks extremely quickly.
Yeah. But it looks like Dandy will hold on to this position.
Terror is slowly losing control of this game.
Yeah, I
he had good control in the Polypoid game too, and it's kind of, I'm starting to think, like, if you're able to survive the early mid game versus Terror, you're going to be feeling pretty good going into the mid-late game versus him, because I'm getting flashbacks to the Polypoid game that despite having, you know, map control throughout, he was slow to take bases, he didn't even BC switch. Dandy was the one to BC switch. And I feel like we're probably going to see that same scenario where, again, Dandy's going to go for the killer comp, and eventually Terra's just going to run out of money. Well, here's a game-changing move. This is a ton of tanks moving in to deny top middle.
I'm gonna lose my mind if Terror loses this game, honestly. Like, we'll see if this attack works, but Dandy's already working or using the time bought by the mines to put in more tanks into positions to siege up. And actually, Terror's tanks aren't even on the high ground. He's not even sieging them, dude.
I know, he
but
needs to
Dandy's
siege.
not target firing either. But with +2,
oh my gosh,
he's gonna completely destroy these tanks. As long as he keeps the tanks away from his refinery, that's the most important part. You know, as long as he's still mining gas, and that's so many tanks from Terra that are just stuck there doing absolutely nothing. They're stuck in their tracks, and this is going to give Dandy an opportunity to attack elsewhere if he so desires. But it doesn't look like he's shifting his attention away just yet. Peter Castle did unsiege a lot of his tanks. Is he gonna try and put? No, there's no way. Not against +2. You cannot push against +2. It's a different game. It's not +1.
Man, he is losing so many tanks here, trying to reposition his tanks, and he doesn't get anything done. And so that was a botched attack from TerrOr. And if you look at the supply, not only is Dandy in favor. Oh man, I think TerrOr's desperate. He's pulling SCVs now to try and bust bottom top left. This is not going to work. There's still 3 tanks there. And this is a funnel, man. Like,
what is he doing?
Oh, wow, SCVs drilled through and eliminated one of the tanks, and then tanks on the high ground eliminated the other tank. There's only one left. Dandy's scrambling to reposition here, but is he going to be in time? As you pointed out, all the tanks need to do is be within the refinery. Now, this is a little bit of a different situation. They need to be within range of the command center. But this attack went better than I was anticipating.
I actually can't believe that attack worked. Like, it's kind of mind-boggling that he even went for that. I feel like Dandy just wasn't paying attention, because when you have +2 tanks, all you have to do is just target fire tanks. They absolutely, like, +2 tanks just eradicate tanks. Like, it's insane, especially if they're going down the funnel. And he had 3 tanks there. He could have easily held. What?
Oh,
he's already on battle cruisers?
Yeah, he's switching to BCs, and bottom right has been taken by TerrOr, but Dandy's found an opening in the middle of the map. There's not that... Okay, there are a lot of tanks. However, if he can swoop around to the 4th base, he may be able to deny that. He's not going to be able to push through the center anymore. That's for sure. He's not going to get to the 3rd base, but 4th base might be vulnerable. There's only 1 tank there, not on the high ground either, but what this does do is it cuts off reinforcements from TerrOr. Again, the boys are being pulled. When you can't deal with them with tanks, just pull the boys. They clean it up, and they just instantly go back to mining. And you can see that TerrOr's started to take that gas at bottom right, but I don't see any amount of SCVs over there.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. He doesn't really have, like, that base isn't going to be threatened anytime soon. Doesn't seem like it. Only now adding comsats, actually. That's 4 dropships, actually.
That's a doom drop, and as I said, 5 is really when drops start to get dangerous, and apparently Dandy was listening. This is going to be directly on top of the tanks. He's going to lose probably all of his dropships here. SCVs are surprisingly strong, of course, in that 1 tank on the high ground dealing a lot of damage. But there's so many tanks and Goliaths left over that this base has been compromised, and that's going to be a lifted command center that's going to get taken down.
Well, I don't think he's going to be able to take down this other expansion, though. But anyway, I mean, TerrOr is making battlecruisers, though. If you make battlecruisers off of 2 starports, it's really not that scary. Like, they're not even that good. Like, if you have 4 battlecruisers, they suck. They just die to Goliaths. Like, they're not good units. So you really need to get up to a lot of, like, a lot more. And like you said, Naokin, a lot of the value comes through just sitting on over tanks and Yamatoing down the opponent. So 4 BCs not quite gonna do that. There's still an opportunity here for Danny to claw his way back into this game, but it's still looking pretty good for TerrOr.
Well, Dandy's very low on resources now, so is TerrOr, but TerrOr does have that 5th base up and running at bottom right. Dandy needs to get another drop going over there to try and eliminate this. It was critical that he eliminated 1 out of the 6 bases that TerrOr could have taken, but now that he's done that, and now that he's not able to get top left, he really needs to also take out bottom right. For now, Dandy's moving to the left side to try and eliminate all of these tanks so he can finally retake top left. Well, tanks are sieging, but they're a little bit out of vision. Now Vulture runs in, and Dandy is going to start sieging up, but he loses 1 or 2 tanks.
Well, Dandy will be able to secure this expansion soon enough. That is only 2 tanks left for TerrOr. And
it's starting to slowly turn in favor of TerrOr with those BCs. I don't think Dandy has scanned the BCs yet, and he's now realized that, hey, Goliath count is almost non-existent at top left. I'm going to send my BCs up here and deny this base. That's a fantastic move. He's not only going to deny this base, he's going to wipe out a lot of tanks and Goliath, and then he can take that base himself.
Yeah, that would be a great plan actually for TerrOr to just take over this base. He has, 3 battlecruisers here. Still not quite enough to punch through efficiently. 4 battlecruisers is better. That is a lot of turrets coming up. He's gonna have to Yamato them down or something. I mean, 4 battlecruisers really, like, they do obviously will kill the turrets, but it's just annoying taking damage on them. That's probably Yamato researching. Generally, you want to go, okay, no, he doesn't have energy just yet. He does have Yamato, okay, so a couple of Yamatos down on the tanks. It's just really annoying for Dandy. He's gonna have to bring more tanks here. The next round of Yamatos are gonna clear the tanks totally from that base. Ooh, he actually finds a nice position here in range of the command center, so this base is gone for Dandy.
Yeah, he watched the VOD from yesterday. He's in that gypsy spot, and he gets in there and forces the SCVs to be pulled. So maybe TerrOr can't get this base, but he denies top left, and Dandy is almost mined out at this point. Top middle, his third base is gone. All that's left for him is the 4th base, and it's just going to be a matter of whether Dandy can get top left or he's going to run out of steam. These drops, they're dealing a lot of damage, but unless this ends the game, TerrOr is slowly but surely going to win it.
Yeah, this drop has to do a significant amount of damage. If he does kill this base, that's going to be something. TerrOr will be down to 4 bases mining, but that is 3 tanks with +3, a lot of turrets and SCVs to fight. I don't think this base is going to go down. Dropships are unloading. Well, hold that thought. That is a lot of Goliaths, and Goliaths are really good actually at dealing with the SCVs, unlike tanks. So that base is going to go down. Still, though...
Oh, look at that. Action in the center of the map, losing so many tanks, and supplies are now 50 ahead for TerrOr. Holy shit, that's a lot of tanks. That is a ton of tanks that came out of nowhere. I was not expecting to see that.
That is a lot of tanks. TerrOr, there we go, GG, finally. Dandy calls it. TerrOr had a huge advantage that game. A huge advantage. It would be so surprising for him to lose that game. So finally managing to convert that advantage through. And that's going to take him to match point here against Dandy.
Yeah, but it was worrisome because Dandy was staging an amazing comeback. The harassment from TerrOr was sick, killing so many SCVs, as you mentioned, but he's really struggling to close out the game in the mid and late game. I am happy to see that he was the one that ended up going for the BC switch.
Yeah.
So that was a nice realization from the Polypod game. But now we're going to be getting into game 4, and this is going to be match point for Dandy, or for TerrOr. If he wins here, he's going to move on. And Dandy's decided that he wants to risk his life on Blue Storm. He doesn't have many options left. It's either this or Tau Cross. And this is going to be an interesting map going up against somebody like Dandy, or somebody like TerrOr.
Blue Storm's a sick map, man. We've seen it a decent amount of times this tournament for TVT. It's very standard, but it's also very prone to aggression.
It's very standard? I don't know about that.
Well, it's not very standard, but
yeah.
I don't know. Well, I feel like for TVT it is. It's kind of easy to split the map.
Yeah, if you get to that point, for sure, you can split the map and then you have tank BC battle again. What I don't like about this map is that if you have an early game trade that does not go very well for you, the game's already over. Because they sit in that gully, you're not getting out of your base anymore. You might get out, but your nat is denied forever. You're never, ever going to trade effectively, ever. It's so punishing, and it is crucial that you have very good early game in TVT. And so far, we've seen TerrOr have the better early game, so I'm going to favor him a little bit on this map in particular.
Yeah, that's a good point. TerrOr has gone ahead almost every single game in that mid to early to mid phase. He just kind of somehow slips up in the later stages of the mid game. So we'll see how he has prepared for Blue Storm here. Again, this map, what I didn't mean what I meant to say wasn't that it's standard, but it's actually a very simple map to play. Provided that you get past the early game. The early game can be very tricky on this map because proxying is so strong. Whether it's a Rax proxy or factory or proxy factory or whatever, aggression can be rewarded on this map. But getting into the mid game, it's very easy to split the map. It's very easy to go up to 4 gases. And then there's not too many places to attack, but the timings are tight, and you only have 4 gases to work with. It's not like other maps where you have 5, 6 gases to work with in the split map situation. So it's very limited. If you go for battle cruisers, you're gonna have only a limited amount.
Yeah, as you pointed out that there's only 4 gas, I instantly thought of race, and I thought, well, if you go for race, you better in the game with them, because if you get stuck with them, that's a lot of supply that gets absolutely murdered by Valkyries, and you're not going to be able to fall back on a 5th or 6th gas, as you mentioned. So if we see anybody go for those expensive, fragile units, they need to end the game with them, if we get to split map scenario, of course. Every time I see this map, I instantly always think of the Koget versus Terra game. Again, Terra had a massive lead on it, but he did not recognize that Koget was simply just turtling and already transitioning into early game VCs. I think we saw, was it Ultra, play this map perfectly already in PvT? Somebody did, where they realized that
Ultra versus Medina, right?
Yeah, somebody played it perfectly, where he just built tanks and VCs, and that's all you need to do, really, once he gets into split map. It's so hard to make anything else work. Like, drops are hard to make work. Race, as I said, are hard to make work. So I'm hoping we get another split map scenario, but as I've stated, Blue Storm, you get punished really hard, really hard.
Yeah, well, the map is almost ready, guys. Players just about ready. Some final preparations. Of course, I'm surprised after they've been playing kind of these crazy 30-minute slugfests. They could easily be like, oh, you know what, I need a break. But they're fighting it out. Blue Storm is going to be map number 4. And I think we can almost get into the game.
As soon as you said they might need a break, the person I instantly thought of was Ret, because this guy, whether it's a 5-minute game, 10-minute game, hour-long game, he's like, yeah, I just played one game, I gotta go take a break. I hated playing versus him, because he would win, he's like, I gotta take a break. In my mind, if I lose, I want to get in the game ASAP and just kill this guy. But we are finding out that the players are ready. Let's get into game 4, see if Terror can close it out. I want to see a proxy Rax, man. I want to see a 6 Rax from Peter Castle. In the bottom left, we got our blue Terran. It's Dandy.
And in the top right, we got Peter Castle in the red.
Yeah, so you can't gas us this map, right? That's impossible. You can't command center first this map, right?
Oh, you can.
What, and then lose the game 2 minutes later?
No, you can't, because you can delay an SCV in the nook, like in the small choke, and if the opponent commits to making the racks inside their base, it's like a pretty long rush distance, and you can drill SCVs through that. Yeah, command center is for sure. Command center first is for sure a thing. I mean, I've seen Flash do it back in the Pro League days. It was not common on this map because, again, proxies are so strong, but it's definitely good on this map.
Well, we'll see if either player is thinking about going for that fast command center. I feel like that's asking for death, but one of the things with Blue Storm in the gully is that you can't build turrets in the gully. So if you do go for command center first, something like 2-port Wraith with Cloak is a decent follow-up. We see that Dandy is building his barracks to the side of his base, making sure that there's no potential proxy in his main. Now again, Terra is going out with a somewhat quick scout.
Yeah. It is quick. I do like this early scouting from him, just making sure that, You know, there's no kind of crazy command center first, and both players playing this map very standard. It's so funny actually. Like you would expect in this, you would expect between these two players, at least someone's gonna whip out some crazy thing. But they've both been very timid. They've both been very reserved with their build order choices, and just mostly playing standard games, like at least standard openers.
We do see that the SCV for TerrOr was harassing the SCV building the racks in Dandy's main. There's a slight delay from the FP view, but that is happening. We do see that factory is going to be coming down pretty soon for Dandy. Now, meanwhile, I actually didn't get to see whether TerrOr was mining fully on gas or if he was going again for that hybrid opener. It is the hybrid opener.
I mean, he's just been prepared. I guess he just prepared this every single game. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. But yeah, it's all right. No reason not to do this, I suppose. Factory already on the way for Dandy. Still, Dandy can elect to do. So there's a lot of stuff you can do against a Rax expand. I mean, you can go into siege mode early. On this map, it's not so good because, again, when you go with that siege tank push, you really need a bunker and marines to cover the 2-port defense. And on this map, there's no place to play to build a bunker on. So that's out of the question. Another option is to go for something like early vulture speed to sneak in some vultures. But the rush distance on this map is quite significant in terms of the snake pattern you have to take with the vultures. So that kind of limits that timing as well. So really what's left is to go for a really quick starport and cloak, which Dandy does not seem to be doing. Those are the ways that you can kind of do some damage to try and equalize the SCV count. But other than that, I mean, Dandy can be happy with just knowing that TerrOr expanded and he can just play his own build out down 1 SCV. It's not really that big of a deal.
Well, this was an awkward scout timing for TerrOr. When he came in and only saw 1 factory, he needed to be concerned about 2 starports. With the vulture coming out and killing the SCV, now he knows that, well, this is not going to be a 2-starport follow-up. That upgrade going down in the factory more than likely is for mines. So all of a sudden, that strategy has already been eliminated from Dandy's arsenal. We see that the NAT is up and running for both players. Dandy just now transferring his SCVs. Meanwhile, again in Peter Castle's base, we see double factory, double add-on, and again he's taking a pretty quick NAT gas.
Yeah, the quick NAT gas for Peter Castle is indicative of just non-vulture play, really. I mean, wants to get those tanks out. It's very interesting because a lot of the times when you see someone who plays this passively, they do opt to go for the starport as well to at least get some pressure out. But I mean, this is fine going for the 2 factory, making tanks and just gearing up for a nice 5 factory push. But on this map for TerrOr, I feel like that's the one thing that's gonna work against this style. You know, TerrOr is the type of player that delays expansions, he delays upgrades, and just tries to factory flood you really early on. But on Blue Storm, there's not many attack paths, so you can just kind of defend the main path and be fine. So I feel like this map should favor Dandy.
We see a couple of mines on the high ground. I don't think they went spotted. Rax is going to float into the main, and these mines are set up in a position where if TerrOr A moves, he may lose all 3 of these tanks because all those mines are right next to each other, could explode in sync. Again, Dandy is going for the fast factories, and he's going to have 4 versus 2 for now. Scan, or oh no, actually TerrOr already has 4, so TerrOr is even faster than Dandy. A couple of Goliaths are going to move out and push this Rax away. What Dandy does need to do is move that single vulture away from those mines. Once the vulture gets spotted, that the gig is up. He knows that mines are already set up there. So I'm hoping that he moves that vulture back.
Yeah, and it looks like neither player really wanting to go for an early starport. The Rax goes down for Dandy, but he already has an academy and he already has the 4 factories he needs, so not the worst part. Not the worst thing to happen. Mine does clear, or gets cleared by the Marines actually, and Dandy's rebuilding the Rax to try and get some spawning out in the middle of the map. Looks like he was trying to go for that Nook there, but of course his timing is too late. I mean, he doesn't really have a timing because they're both doing identical builds, so TerrOr should be able to defend against this. TerrOr though, looks like he's taking a very weird route. Was he trying to avoid some mines maybe? I don't know. But I can't see this game not being split map.
Yeah, the way the build orders were unfolding for TerrOr, that's instantly what I thought. I was going to say, well, he's already going for the split map scenario. And I don't think he's really going to do anything with this force. I mean, he has an opportunity because there's only 3 tanks, but I imagine he's just going to send out like at least double SCV, take bottom right, and probably mineral only. Meanwhile, we see Dandy's ramping up his factories. This time around, he's the one that is not expanding to the 3rd base very quickly. He's just going to go for heavy army in the early game, and I don't really know how well that's going to work out.
It's kind of weird to see him adding this 1 factory. Like, it's kind of like, oh, you know, it's the build is 5 fact, the build is 5 fact, but a 5th factory, like an extra 5th factory at this time, doesn't change anything. It doesn't really help him do anything more or less than the 4 factories. I would have much preferred him to just start expanding. Like, well, what's this 5th factory gonna do, dude? Like, you're splitting the map. It's Blue Storm. It's just delaying your command center. So, kind of unfortunate for Dandy. He will run by with a couple of vultures, but this isn't enough to really put on pressure. Peter Castle should be just fine. They might trade for a couple of SCVs, but at this point in the game, TerrOr has his infrastructure established, his economy established. He can afford to lose a couple of SCVs. And really, this right here, now, both players know exactly what each other is doing. They need to just start dropping down the command centers, especially at the gas bases. Just literally expand. Don't need more factories, don't need more starports at this point, but Dandy's just going up to 6 factories. What is he thinking, man? Like, you're just gonna A-move? Okay.
Well, he's found an opening on the bottom side of TerrOr's side of the map, and you know, this is a map, as we stated, where there's limited bases, so for him to be in this position is already a great situation for him. He has more factories than TerrOr also, so he's going to be able to out-macro TerrOr as the game goes longer and longer, but he did not get into a position to deny that bottom base completely. TerrOr is starting to build those command centers though. Bottom right is going down. Drop ships are coming out for TerrOr again, and there's no vision at all for Dandy right now. If TerrOr was to elevator all of these units, I think the game ends. Look at this.
Yeah. Well, it would be funny if he actually did elevator a bunch of units, but I think he's just going to go for vulture drops for now.
I'm so sad.
Well, actually, he's moving his units into position, so he might elevator.
Yeah, he's going to continue elevatoring. What I mean was, I wish he had not shown these vultures just yet, because now alarm bells are going off.
Ooh, Dandy's just pushing across the high ground.
Yeah, he's pushing the high ground, and these tanks are split up, and Tandy's 6-fact might overrun TerrOr, but he's being a little bit too passive.
I don't know, but like TerrOr is gonna be able to siege up on the man. Yeah, imagine just us casters here sitting talking about Blue Storm. Yeah, this is exactly how the map plays out. Yeah, you know, we're just gonna go split the map. It's very straightforward. And then you watch these two play, and it's just the most insane thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, you could have never predicted this, and I don't even know who's going to come out on top. Dandy's going to be able to push out onto the high ground here. He's going to clear the tanks from Peter Castle, but the problem is that Dandy, just his production is compromised.
Yeah, but SCVs are so strong, but you need to actually have SCVs.
No, he's losing all of his SCVs, dude.
Yeah, he lost all of his SCVs at the natural, and he has 6 factories, but he doesn't have that much stuff.
This game's over. That's it.
No, I don't think the game's over.
No, the game's over. He literally lost all his SCVs at his natural. He has only 1 base mining. The game is over. Like, there's nothing Dandy can do about this. He can go.
What if he builds a Wraith? What
Well,
if he builds a Wraith? There's no
There's a couple
there.
guards there.
Are there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there are 2 Goliaths. I saw them. But
Even
now
if Dandy
Dandy's...
takes this natural, like, Terra has bottom right. He can mine from there. There's not enough units for Dandy here. That's
Look
it.
at the boys, man. They're doing work.
Peter
Get me
Castle,
in there.
man.
Yeah, these are Peter Castle SCVs.
Peter
They're
Castle
stronger
just
than
won his
usual.
BSL match, and soon he's going to be the president of Peru.
He might be. All these tanks are falling, but that's a lot of ultra reinforcements. Supplies have plummeted for Dandy. He's below 70. Meanwhile, Peter Castle sitting strong at around 95. Wow, did he kill the command center?
Oh, no,
okay,
he didn't. I think
he did. There's no way it floated to top left.
I think it did, right?
That's impossible. You're telling me that the command center?
You're telling me the command center died to tanks? Tanks
Yeah,
can't
I think
shoot
it
air.
did. It didn't take any shots from the tanks either. It just floated over there. It's not even hurt. Look, there's the single Wraith that wants to change the tides of this game. But the 2 Goliaths are saying, that's not happening. And all the tanks die, and as you said, this game is probably over now.
You think the SCVs in charge of the command center just forgot the liftoff procedure?
Yeah,
They're like, how do we do this?
Oh, okay, it did take damage. I thought it was a full health command center. I was like, there's no way that happened. Well, Vultures are going to try and save the day, but this is way too late. Supplies are more than double. Dandy took way too many losses on this simple elevator drop. 39 supply. The writing is on the wall. Dandy is moments away from tapping it out of this game. He's going to try and salvage it, but nope. There it is. There is the GG. And Terror, with the stronger early game, he's going to take out Dandy in a very, very cool TVT series.
Yeah, absolutely crispy coolness. I'm surprised that it didn't go to the game 5, because I feel like between these two players it kind of almost always does. But Terror has just looked better than Dandy all throughout the series. Although there were some major slip-ups where Terror got into some fantastic positions and kind of almost lost the games. Overall, he played really much better than Dandy did this series, so definitely deserves to move on. And that's just our first series, guys. Still have another one coming up. It is going to be True Touch versus Eon Zerg in a ZVZ Bonanza. You don't want to miss this, so don't go anywhere.